This video was made possible through the support of my patrons. Happy December, everybody! So for the last 2 years, I've been putting together lengthy, extensive review marathons, and I'm not doing that this year, due to time constraints, but I still wanted to do an advent calendar series for this year, so I decided to do a countdown. Every day, we'll be breaking down the greatest moments of the revived series of Doctor Who from 2005 to 2021. Now, with over 160 episodes of TV across 16 years, I had to establish some ground rules. Firstly, only one moment per episode. That way, we are guaranteed variety, instead of me just putting every frame of midnight in every spot of this list. Also, no Series 13. This isn't a personal thing, but due to the BBC's abuse of YouTube's copyright system, these videos need to be made 2 months in advance, and at the time of recording, we don't even have a release date for Series 13 yet, so there's no way I can put it on the list. I will, however, on Christmas Eve, be doing a video breaking down the best moments of Series 13, and if whether or not there would have been any moments that were seriously considered for this list, but for now it's between Rose and Revolution of the Daleks, with mini-sodes and non-televised stories off the table as well. Sorry Paul McGann, sorry Peter Davison, but there's so much here. Also, the scenes that I've selected need to work both in their own bubble and also the surrounding context needs to support it. That's why you're not going to get the regeneration cliffhanger in The Stolen Earth, or the 12th Doctor's regeneration, or Clara's 20th departure. Great moments, but I needed to have those additional caveats to get this list to 25. Christmas specials are included as well though. So this month we'll be counting down the top 25 Doctor Who moments of the revived. Oh, what the heck, let's go for 50. Yes, there was no way that I could make this list just 25, and I think just having it be 25 would have hurt the spirit of this list, because while these genuinely are my favourite moments, I wanted to make sure that this list had plenty of variety, and also mainly just to be a celebration of the show's revival. Basically, don't take the actual rankings here too seriously. For this list, the margins of subjectivity and personal preference can be razor thin, so don't get too upset if your favourite moment did not wind up here. This is my list, but I'd love to hear yours when all is said and done. So, ladies and gentlemen, join me on this journey, from punching that alarm clock to the start of a trip of a lifetime, to saying goodbye to the fam. This month we'll be counting down the top 50 best moments of revived Doctor Who.
Rob.
Where better to start this countdown than with the show's inciting incident? Rose Tyler stays behind at work in the department store to drop off lottery money in the basement, only to be ambushed and attacked by moving shop window dummies. Then, just as one is about to strike her down, a hand comes from nowhere, tells her to run, and then Rose and this mysterious stranger dash down a neighbouring corridor. It's not just a great introduction to these characters, but it immediately shows the mission statement of this revival of Doctor Who. After the 1990s gave us shows with an artificial edge, and we also had TV shows based on combat and violence like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the 9th Doctor takes our main character's hands, saving her from certain death, like something from the opening of most slasher films. You know, the beautiful blonde goes in the basement and she's dead. And Doctor Who proudly announces that this ain't that type of show. Throw in the cherry on top of the villains at the heart of this being the Autons, and you've got an unspoken link to the past whilst embracing new traditions. And that last line from the Doctor makes me laugh every time.
I'm the Doctor, by the way. What's your name?
Rose.
Nice to meet you, Rose. Run for your life.
I debated whether or not to have Rose reacting to the TARDIS interior from the series premiere as the number 50 spot, but then I considered other scenes where the Doctor's companions or other supporting cast members have stepped inside this impossibly huge space. That reaction from Rose is terrific, and I also love its unveiling in The Snowmen, but oddly enough, the best reaction to this dimensionally transcendental space does not come from a companion, It comes from the Doctor.
Finally.
Finally.
It's my go. God! Oh, it's bigger
Oh, yes.
on the inside.
Look, we need to concentrate.
There it is.
Yep, I know where you're going with this, but I need you to calm down.
On the outside.
The Doctor reunites with River Song in his 12th incarnation, however, she has no idea that he's the Time Lord of her dreams. With this newfound anonymity, he decides to make the most of it, and finally gets someone to react to the TARDIS properly.
Three-dimensional Euclidean geometry has been torn up, fur in the air, and snubbed to death. My grasp of the universal constants of physical reality has been changed. Forever.
Is this scene mostly just Stephen Moffat's trademark self-indulgence? Absolutely. But Capaldi kills it. This really was the only type of story where you'd be able to include a scene like this, and it's heartwarming to watch superfan Peter Capaldi get to play the Doctor, but also in this scene, play the companion. It's really just wonderful watching the Doctor break character during his tirade at just how happy he is that he can do this. And look, there's even Brandy.
We've got air. How does that work?
Just be glad it does.
There's always the temptation when writing new companions to differentiate themselves as much as possible from their predecessors, and I think that was the idea for Martha Jones after the Doctor's traumatic departure from her in Series 2. With Rose we had someone with a small family and few prospects, but with Martha we get a huge dysfunctional family, and a bright future career as a doctor if she can pass her exams, and I think the contrast between the two women are solidified when we meet Rose underground in London, but for Martha, the Doctor truly gets to meet her when the Judoon take her hospital off-world to the moon, and we get this lovely, tranquil scene where the 10th Doctor and Martha boldly go out onto the balcony to admire the view, standing in the Earthlight, and Martha finds it beautiful, representing humanity's newfound knowledge of alien life after the past few years.
What people call you the Doctor?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not. As far as I'm concerned, you've got to earn that title.
There's a lot to be said about the Master's characterization during the Russell T Davies era, from making Harold Saxon a Tony Blair stand-in, to his manic energy, love of pop music and more. The Series 3 finale is certainly mixed, but if there's one thing the fandom can absolutely agree on, it's that having the Master stubbornly die in the Doctor's arms as opposed to regenerating out of pure spite is right on the money.
We're the only two left. There's no one else. Regenerate!
How about that? I win.
Knowing the Master cannot be trusted but also can't be killed with the Doctor taking the gun out of Francine Jones's hand, the Doctor decides that maybe it's time to stop travelling and act as the rival Renegade's keeper, only for the Master's downtrodden and abused wife to pick up the gun and deal with him herself, which also gives the Master a firm out of a living hell with the last of his kind, a final victory that leaves the Doctor alone in the universe again and burying his equal.
Bill, you're about to be exposed to the vacuum of space.
Oh, God.
So don't hold your breath.
Oh, my lungs will explode.
We're listening. Well done.
Oddly enough, for a show about travelling across the universe, the actual dangers of space itself as an environment hardly ever plays a factor. Spacesuits are always available, force fields keep the air contained, the atmosphere is breathable. How about that? Well, Series 10's Oxygen has a mission statement. Emphasize that everything about space wants you dead. So when the 12th Doctor, Bill and Nardole investigate a distress signal from a space station with a Walking Dead crew, the limited oxygen supply becomes the biggest danger, with the characters literally counting their breaths to the next area of the station. When Bill's spacesuit malfunctions while the room decompresses, she has about 10 seconds to prepare and take the Doctor and Nardole's advice on how to survive in the vacuum of space, before the air gets sucked out of the room, along with Bill's last breaths. Only for her to wake up elsewhere next to an ironic poster after the Doctor saved her life by giving her his own helmet and miraculously surviving but losing his sight. This extreme act of selflessness results in permanent blindness for the Doctor, and Bill, only a few episodes later, gives up the world so he can have it returned. Wonderful symmetry, but Oxygen boldly goes where this franchise never went before, all encapsulated in this scene.
Bill, I've got no TARDIS, no Sonic, about 10 minutes oxygen left. And now I'm blind. Can you imagine how unbearable I'm gonna be when I pull this off?
Do it right this time. I won't be calling anyone.
Reminder, this list is entirely subjective, and I don't think this scene hits that hard for many people, but for me though, it hits me like a ton of bricks. While Can You Hear Me only gives a surface level look at our main cast's insecurity, like Ryan's survival guilt, Graham's paranoia, and the Doctor's repressed abandonment anxiety, but it's with Yasmin Khan where this episode explores emotional trauma the most, and even finds time to explore recovery through friends and family.
Hitchhiking?
No.
Just taking in the view.
Not breaking the law, am I?
Due to the crowded TARDIS team, we've not managed to delve into Yaz's past much, but we do know she had a rough time at school and does not get along with her family. One day she ran away from home and, with her sister worried that she'd do something stupid, was reported missing, only to be met at the side of the road by PC Patel, who talks her down from the metaphorical ledge and even makes a bet for her visit in a few years' time, which we see Yaz do to give Patel the 50 pence. Now, Yaz and her sister meet up every year on the anniversary to celebrate still being here. Sure, Yaz can still relapse and things aren't perfect, but she's chosen life, and time and space followed.
Hi, can I help you?
Hi. You won't remember me. My name's Yasmin.
Yasmin Khan.
I flippin' do remember you. I've got something for you.
You want to come in?
Why is there a frog in here?
You said I could stop being Trina.
The Solitractor's a frog. Who talks like Grace.
My own form is endless, but this frog is a form that delights me. as it once delighted Grace.
Sometimes you've just got to respect the sheer audacity of something, you know? When the 13th Doctor, Graham, Ryan and Yaz find a mostly empty cabin in Norway, and just when you think it's going to be a bog-standard base under siege story, it takes a turn for the bonkers when they find a mirror leading to a parallel universe, and between the two universes is a creepy dude called Ribbons. There's also giant moths and balloons. Then, in the new universe, we've got Mirror Grace, Mirror Trine, but it's collapsing due to the amount of people in the hostile environment. As the universe collapses around the Doctor, she finds herself in a white void and encounters a frog in a chair with the voice of Sharon D. Clarke. Because why not? Douglas Adams would be proud.
I wish I could stay. But if either of us are gonna survive, you're gonna have to let me go and keep on being brilliant by yourself.
I miss you. I miss it all so much.
I know. But if you do this, I promise you and I will be friends forever.
But it's not just abstract for the sake of abstraction, nor is it completely random. The Solitract universe is a metaphor for loss and grief, with Hannah's father Eric holding on to the wife that he's lost, and neglecting everything he still has left. The Solitract has lured Eric into its universe, but at the expense of his responsibilities as a father. The Solitract as an entity is in the reverse position, missing our universe and grieving over its loss, and the Doctor is not here to confront it, but to comfort it. This is peak Doctor Who, an emotionally fraught climax with the most high concept and out there settings and imagery. With the Doctor unable to remain in the sentient universe, she regretfully blows a kiss to the frog and is propelled out again. Audacious, ridiculous, oddly profound. I love it.
They have taken the blue box, haven't they? The angels have the phone box.
What do you mean, angels? You mean those statue things?
Only when you see them.
The fandom is practically united on the idea that the Weeping Angels are the best recurring villain that the revived series has produced, yet when compiling this list I found it hard to select an individual moment for them. If power creep existed in the Doctor Who universe, the Weeping Angels might be the prime culprit, with a list of ever-growing and often contradictory set of abilities, which started on the slippery slopes of The Time of Angels. It's not a great two-parter, but it does start incredibly strong, with the idea of a lone angel being monitored on a security camera and only a few seconds of surviving footage being prime real estate to put kids behind the sofa.
But you're just a recording. You can't move.
With the image of an angel becoming itself an angel and Amy trapped in a cabin forced to look at the screen, which cannot be turned off, with every blink and every reset of the footage, the angel gets ever closer to the camera and is able to crawl out of the screen towards Amy. It's also a great showcase for new companion Amy Pond, with her first episodes making her a great emotional anchor for this eccentric new Doctor, but this situation has her testing her wits, even poking fun at the idea of winking to combat the angels. This set piece is really well placed in this two-parter as well, giving the audience a taste of the angels' power before diving into the story proper. Genuinely frightening, a solid building on the meta direction applied in Blink, this is, in my opinion, the Weeping Angels' best showcase as new horrific villains.
That was pretty good.
That was amazing.
River, hug Amy.
Why?
Because I'm busy.
I'm fine.
You're brilliant.
Heat shields failing at 10%.
I I'd like to see William Hartnell try and do this. Yes, when Christopher Eccleston left the role of the Doctor and was replaced by the younger David Tennant, the Doctor became much more akin to an action hero, kind of like James Bond, with Series 3 really pushing this angle thanks to an increased budget, which leads us to 42, an episode that's not particularly interesting on the page outside of its real-time gimmick. However, what holds it together is the incredible direction from franchise veteran Graham Harper. It's no exaggeration to say that 42 would be half the episode it is without Graham Harper.
And certainly you've got Graham Harper directing, and before every take, he bellows, "Loads of passion, energy!"
Loads of energy in place, here we go. Action.
Martha, Riley, how you doing?
With the story ending its second act with the Doctor doing a spacewalk as the SS Pentaleon makes its way ever closer to the sun so the Doctor can reach an oddly placed switch to bring the escape pod that Martha and crew member Riley are trapped on back. But it's also character revealing for the Doctor. The ship is 11 minutes away from crashing into the sun and he stops everything he's doing to save Martha and Riley. His duty of care to his companions, especially after Rose, trumps everything else as the clock ticks down. It's an action sequence that says something about the Doctor. It's also triumphant as hell. The music's blaring, David Tennant is acting his heart out. It's an awesome set piece, culminating in the Doctor hitting the switch and then staring into the sun and getting possessed by it, making him the most dangerous being on that spaceship for the final act.
It's alive. It's alive.
Doctor Who is a show of contrasts. One week, the 10th Doctor is mouthing a promise to Martha from one window to another as she drifts away to certain death. Then another week, the 10th Doctor is mouthing utter confusion at Donna Noble from one window to another as the two are reunited in the Series 4 opener. Okay, humour is subjective, but this is funny as hell to me. The Doctor and Donna have taken separate approaches to the same mission: infiltrate Adipose Industries. Just as Miss Foster has kidnapped an employee and is revealing her grand plan with a monologue, the Doctor arrives at the window to eavesdrop, with Donna arriving at the office door. The two are so taken aback by the surprise reunion that they completely forget the mission and their covers are blown. Subversive and brilliantly timed. I'm also curious as to whether or not Murray Gold's music adds or detracts from the scene. I can imagine this sequence playing in absolute silence and still working, but that's neither here nor there. It's not only a really inventive way to give us a companion reintroduction, but it also shows Donna's utter elation at finally tracking down the Doctor, allowing Catherine Tate to play into her comedic persona. Plus, David Tennant's baffled expressions are just the icing on the cake here.
Interrupting you?
Get her.
I can't keep him away much longer.
Then don't.
Doc.
Stop fighting. It's okay. Jack's warning. Jack isn't here now, stuck in a house with that.
Exactly, you didn't want us near it a minute ago.
Don't let the Cybermen have what it wants.
I know, because armies will rise and billions will die.
Shelley's gonna die if that stuff stays inside him.
Shelley's only one life against all those others.
But is he, Ryan?
The Haunting of Villa Diodati is an awesome episode, and I don't care what the naysayers say, this climactic scene kills. We've got the setup of Mary Shelley, Lord Byron, Claire Claremont, John Polidori, along with the 13th Doctor and friends, finding Percy Shelley under the villa possessed by the Cyberium that Ashad, the lone Cyberman, has travelled across time and space to attain. With Percy Shelley's work considered too influential to history to hand him over to the Cybermen, the Doctor makes the executive decision to hand the Cyberium over, with the Doctor deciding to go against her companion's wishes and subverts the whole flat team structure that her whole relationship with her fam is based around. Turns out the flat team structure was a lie, and when the chips are down, she's in charge.
You want to sacrifice yourself for this? You want me to sacrifice you? You want to call it? Do it now. All of you. Yeah. Because sometimes this team structure isn't flat. It's mountainous, with me at the summit, in the stratosphere, alone. Left to choose.
And then, topping off the scene, we have Ashad making his way to the basement for the Cyberium, and while Mary Shelley tries to talk the modern Prometheus down, Ashad utterly tears the gesture away.
I did spare your son, because he's a useless runt, sickly and weak, and I did have children. I slit their throats when they joined the resistance. In death, we are transformed, improved, updated, as you will learn.
I wish the fallout from this scene made its way into the finale in any capacity, but as a setup for the end of Series 12, it sets the pins up incredibly well. Just a brilliant episode all around.
You are kidding me.
Expanding on the idea mentioned earlier about the 10th Doctor being a more action-centric Doctor, this is one of the best set pieces of the series. After Donna Noble is warped onto the Doctor's TARDIS on her wedding day, she makes her escape and hops into a taxi to get back to the church.
Get in the church!
However, the taxi is being driven by a robot Santa who has plans for her. As the taxi makes its way onto the motorway, the Doctor gives chase in his TARDIS, pushing the ancient vehicle to its absolute limits as it spins and revolves its way down the A4. With the Doctor hanging out of the doorway, operating the console with a series of pulley systems and string, and every switch he flicks results in cascading explosions inside the ship, he has to convince Donna to take a leap of faith into his ship at 70 miles per hour.
I'm not jumping on a motorway! Whatever that thing is, it needs you, and whatever it needs you for, it's not good! Now come on! I'm in my wedding dress! Yes, you look lovely! Come on!
It's incredibly well directed by A. Ross Lynn, who isn't really known for his action beats, but the TARDIS effects look convincing. There's some great shots of the police box interacting with the traffic. Murray Gold's music is great, and side note here, this was the scene showcased at the Doctor Who Celebration Children in Need concert in November 2006. You can watch this scene with the BBC National Orchestra of Wales playing the score live on the Series 3 DVD, and the concert ended the scene as a cliffhanger. I watched this over and over again as a kid waiting for Christmas Day.
Trust me.
and the pièce de résistance, the kids in the car in front, echoing the kids at home and reacting to everything that's going on, even urging Donna to jump. Such a small detail, but it's so fun to watch. After reassuring Donna that his friend Rose isn't dead, Donna makes the leap and the TARDIS triumphantly spins skyward. Mission accomplished. Before crashing back down.
Funny thing is, for a spaceship, she doesn't do that much flying.
Doctor, huh? Doctor, what do we do?
Nothing.
What?
We don't do anything.
Just as shooting an action scene requires a lot of thought and planning, sometimes the most complex shoots can just be a conversation between two people. Now, I'm not a big fan of Kill the Moon, but I will stand by that ending until my dying breath. After the 12th Doctor left Clara on the moon with student Courtney and astronaut Lundvik to figure out if this episode is an abortion metaphor or not, Clara decides to save the creature living inside the moon, even if it means the Earth's destruction. The Doctor then returns, makes a heroic speech on the beach as the status quo is restored, leaving Clara wanting some questions answered.
Tell me what you knew.
Nothing. I told you I've got grey areas.
Yeah, I noticed. Tell me what you knew, Doctor, else I'll smack you so hard you regenerate.
Series 8 really struggled with making a morally ambiguous Doctor either authentic or interesting, but Kill the Moon was absolutely that season's best crack at it, with the Doctor genuinely thinking that he was respecting Clara's judgment and helping to move humanity forward, but at the expense of Clara's faith in him, and forcing her to make an impossible choice about her species' future as a show of respect?
Do you know what? It was cheap. It was pathetic. No, it was patronizing. That was you. Patting us on the back saying, oh, you're big enough to go to the shops by yourself now. Go on, toddle along.
Oh, that was me allowing you to make a choice about your own future. That was me respecting you.
Oh my God, really? Was it? Yeah, well, respected is not how I feel.
Right, okay.
I nearly didn't press that button. I nearly got it wrong. That was you. My friend, making me scared, making me feel like a bloody idiot.
The way her voice cracks when she calls the Doctor her friend. I've never been the biggest Clara fan, but Jenna Coleman is unquestionably one of the best actors working today. She's incredible. But what I love about this scene is how brilliantly TV veteran director Paul Wilmshurst shoots it. It's all handheld, giving a natural sense of unease during a standard conversation, but Clara and 12 never share the frame once they start talking. Despite the tightness of the frames, these two are fundamentally emotionally separate, even by the confines of the camera. Even when Clara heads towards the door at the end, she escapes the 12th Doctor's frame. Wonderfully filmed, thematically on point, one of the best scenes of this era. Obviously.
What are they doing? What the hell are they?
Ooh, another Graham Harper scene. With Doctor Who returning in the 21st century, it had to show that it could take outdated yet iconic designs and bring them in with modern sensibilities. They managed to do that with the Daleks, but their baseline designs are more or less unchanged since the 1960s. The Cybermen are different, with them having numerous alterations over the decades. Bringing them back effectively is no small task, but the production team did it excellently.
This is excellent news, Doctor.
With the 10th Doctor, Rose and Mickey in a more advanced parallel world, the former two infiltrate a prestigious birthday party to learn more about Cybus Industries, but Cybus's plans are already in motion, having kidnapped the local homeless population and surgically put their brains into suits of armor, with the first of a new race of Cybermen sent to, literally, crash the party.
Dr. Lumic.
Mr. President, I suppose a remark about crashing the party would be appropriate at this point.
The stomping of the feet, the backlighting, Murray Gold's brilliant music, the Doctor realising just a little bit too late what's going on. It's so good. Also, I've always loved this shot of the Cyberman's eye, where there seems to be just a little bit of red around the eye hole. Is that just something to do with the lighting, or is it blood? Either way, the illusion works. The uniformity, the new voices, they're terrific. I love these designs. We get the money shot of the Cybermen stepping into focus into the 21st century, smashing through the windows and assassinating the President of Great Britain. So that's what happens when you refuse.
What happens if I refuse, sorry?
I'm telling you don't.
Okay, fair enough.
Jenkins? Chap with the wings there. 5 rounds rabbit.
Let's take a moment to talk about one character from Doctor Who, Brigadier Alistair Gordon Lethbridge-Stewart. First introduced back in 1968's The Web of Fear, the Brigadier had been a near constant at the Doctor's side for the rest of the classic series. He teamed up with 3 during his time at UNIT, would call the 4th Doctor for help, he met the 5th Doctor when he retired, he came out of retirement for the 7th Doctor, and even met the 6th Doctor for a hot second for charity, and also met Doctors 1, 2, 3 and 5 in the 20th anniversary. He's an icon in the series, and Nicholas Courtney always tackled the role with grace, dignity and warmth.
You know, just once I'd like to meet an alien menace that wasn't immune to bullets.
While fans anticipated a return for the Brigadier in the show's revival, the character was canonically stranded in Peru for several seasons off-screen. He did, however, appear in the finale of Series 2 of the Sarah Jane Adventures, and Courtney hadn't lost a step. Then, 3 years later, Nicholas Courtney passed away at the age of 81 due to cancer. A few months later, this scene broadcast.
Doctor, I'm so sorry. We didn't know how to contact you. I'm afraid Brigadier Lethbridge-Stewart passed away a few months ago. Doctor?
Yes.
He was very peaceful. Talked a lot about you, if that's any comfort. Always made us pour an extra brandy, in case you came round one of these days.
Doctor, what's wrong?
Nothing. Just... It's time. It's time.
In the Series 6 finale, The Wedding of River Song, the Doctor is doing everything he can to put off his eventual fixed-point death at Lake Silencio, and decides to have the longest farewell tour possible. He yells at Dorium in the TARDIS about how time has never laid a glove on him, before being jolted back to reality with the news over the phone that time had taken one of his closest and dearest friends. It was a wonderful moment of closure for the character and the actor at a time when the fandom, the community, was still in collective mourning for both Courtney and also Elizabeth Sladen a few months later. Matt Smith's reaction breaks my heart. Murray Gold gives us one of his best versions of I Am the Doctor, and the Doctor decides that while he does have to die, he doesn't have to die alone, and he invites River, Amy and Rory to be witness to his death. In this life, you just do the best you can, and we still have each other, even on our darkest days.
Where are we going?
Nowhere. We're staying right here. Right here on this exact spot, if I can work out how to do it.
So when are we going?
That is good. That is top notch.
And the answer is?
We're going always.
We're going always.
Totally.
I think the idea that the Doctor is a centuries-old time traveller who is not of our world gets brushed under the rug and normalised a bit too much. There's always a propensity to try and make the Doctor human and relatable, but I often find the show is at its most interesting when it reminds us that nothing could be further from the truth. This is demonstrated in Series 7's Hyde, where in order to find out what's happening in the haunted Caliburn house in 1974 England, the Doctor takes Clara to, always. The scene starts off with banter about wet umbrellas and the colour of the Doctor's spacesuit, but as the reality of what they're doing hits home to Clara, it has her rethinking her time-travelling companion, as the Doctor goes through 6 billion years across Earth's history to photograph the exact same spot throughout the history of Earth, birth to death. It gives Clara an existential crisis.
I mean, 1 minute, you're in 1974, looking for ghosts, but all you have to do is open your eyes and talk to whoever's standing there. To you, I haven't been born yet. And to you, I've been dead 100 billion years. Is my body out there somewhere? In the ground?
Yes, I suppose it is.
But here we are, talking, so I am a ghost. To you, I'm a ghost. We're all ghosts to you. We must be nothing.
My favourite part of this scene, though, is when Clara asks the Doctor what humanity could possibly mean to him. He absolutely dodges the question and references the series arc of The Impossible Girl.
You are the only mystery worth solving.
The Doctor may look like us, talk like us, and sometimes even dress like us, but he absolutely is not one of us. And these scenes from episodes like Hyde really make that crystal clear. The Doctor walks in eternity. Clara is not the first, and she wasn't the last, to travel with this godly figure.
Don't you see? That's why the soothsayers can't see the volcano. There is no volcano. Vesuvius is never going to erupt. The Pyrovar is stealing all its power. They're going to use it to take over the world.
But you can change it back.
I can invert the system, set off the volcano and blow them up, yes, but that's the choice, Donna. It's Pompeii or the world.
Oh my God.
If Pompeii is destroyed, then it's not just history. It's me. I make it happen.
Just as scenes like the last one in Hyde do a great job at demonstrating how different the Doctor can be from his companions and the audience, we also get episodes like The Fires of Pompeii, which show just how alienating that can be personally for the Doctor, and how much of a burden he carries, especially with the 10th Doctor being the last of his kind, the last of the Time Lords, the final person in line to preserve history and keep the timeline stable. When the Doctor and Donna arrive in Pompeii in 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius is meant to erupt, killing over 20,000 people in the city. However, nothing is going to happen, apparently, and tomorrow will just be an ordinary day. It's later revealed that Pompeii is not due to erupt, and it's actually the Doctor who has to press the big red button to stop the pyrovials from consuming its energy, thus creating the eruption that is a fixed point in time but will kill everyone nearby. The volcano must erupt, but the Doctor has to be the one to make it happen. But he's not alone, as Donna, understanding that one person can't carry all that weight alone, places her hands on his, and they hit the switch together, keeping in mind that The Fires of Pompeii is Donna Noble's very first trip in time with the Doctor. That's one hell of a first impression. With the decision being Pompeii or the world, there's no good outcome, but when faced with these impossible choices, the Doctor and his friends can support each other together. And just as Donna was able to be there to support the Doctor in that monumental decision to condemn 20,000 innocent people to death, she convinces him to at least save someone.
Come with me.
Waste time when you don't have any. Time is not the boss of you. Rule 408.
What does the Doctor travel through? Space and time. The former is explored in almost every episode, but time? Well, apart from the setting of each episode, the Doctor's travels through the fourth dimension are pretty bare bones, until Stephen Moffat got his hands on the franchise. I don't think any writer has explored the concept of messing with time more than the former showrunner, with even his first story expanding on the concept of the time agency, and then playing with time with a time-travelling love story and companions meeting the Doctor out of order. I was tempted to put the scene of the Doctor stepping out of Kazran's office and appearing on his pre-recorded video diary in his childhood from A Christmas Carol on this list, but you've got to respect the original, with Blink, where Sally Sparrow is chosen by the Doctor through her DVD collection, in which the Doctor has hidden himself as a video Easter egg. The Easter egg is his half of the conversation recorded in 1969 for Sally to respond to and act as the source of the transcript in 2007.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
Yeah, I've seen this bit before. You said that sentence got away from you.
It got away from me, yeah.
Next thing you're gonna say is, well, I can hear you.
Well, I can hear you.
This isn't possible.
No, it's brilliant. Well, not hear you exactly, but I know everything you're going to say.
Always gives me the shivers, I bet.
It's such a fun conversation, where most of it is spent with just Sally Sparrow and Larry Nightingale trying to wrap their heads around the logistics of it.
I've got a copy of the finished transcript. It's on my autocue.
How can you have a copy of the finished transcript? It's still being written.
I told you I'm a time traveller. I got it in the future.
Okay, let me get my head around this. You're reading aloud from a transcript of a conversation you're still having.
Wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey.
Then the conversation takes a turn towards the dark, as the Doctor explains the mechanics of the Weeping Angels, just as one starts making its way closer to the house. And then, with Larry keeping an eye on the angel outside, he has stopped writing the transcript, leaving the Doctor with nothing to respond to. But he does give Sally one last piece of advice.
Don't blink. Don't even blink. Blink and you're dead. They are fast, faster than you could believe. Don't turn your back. Don't look away, and don't blink. Good luck.
Right then. You asked for it. I know exactly where to go. Hold on.
Series 1 decided to give Rose Tyler the biggest culture shock possible, so on her first proper trip in the TARDIS, the Doctor takes her to the year 5 billion to watch the inevitable heat death of her planet, and gets to see the last of humanity be reduced to a flap of skin, before almost dying due to the space station they're on being sabotaged, which results in multiple deaths and no one watching the Earth's demise when it finally happens. Let's just say it was a very rough start to the trip of a lifetime, though to be fair, it could have been significantly worse.
Good thing I didn't take you to the Deep South.
Needing to detox, the Doctor takes Rose back to Earth in this wonderfully directed epilogue, where the two are the only ones in focus as the world moves on around them. Rose's perspective on mortality and her planet forever changed, and it's in this scene that the Doctor drops the bombshell.
You think it'll last forever? People and cars and concrete, but it won't. One day it's all gone. Even the sky. My planet's gone. It's dead. It burned like the Earth. It's just rocks and dust. Before its time.
I've told this story before, but I was able to attend a Q&A with this episode's director, A. Ross Lynn, and he explained that they filmed this scene just on a random street in Cardiff, and those are just people walking by Christopher Eccleston and Billie Piper. They had no idea that Doctor Who was being filmed around them. But anyway, the only thing that the Ninth Doctor and Rose Tyler can do at this point is get chips. They can choose to either live in despair, they can confine themselves to an impossible ideal like Cassandra, or they can embrace the life and the time that they have now. An unconventional end to an unconventional apocalypse story.
Cybermen don't have the technology to build a void ship. That's way beyond you. How did you create that sphere?
The sphere is not ours.
What?
Where were you in the summer of 2006 when you realised that the Daleks and the Cybermen would be crossing over for the first time in all-out war? Full disclosure, I was very tempted to put the ending of Army of Ghosts on this list, when the Cybermen invade Earth only for the Daleks to come out of the Void Sphere. That's one hell of a cliffhanger, but for the sheer novelty, I had to include this scene instead.
Daleks, be warned. You have declared war upon the Cybermen.
This is not war. This is pest control.
We have 5 million Cybermen. How many are you?
4.
You would destroy the Cybermen with 4 Daleks.
We would destroy the Cybermen with 1 Dalek.
This is just absolute gold. It's pretty self-explanatory why this is brilliant. Russell T Davies obviously has a bias for the Daleks over the Cybermen, but just having the main initial meeting of these two iconic races be over a communication screen and they're just bitching to each other, it's incredible. Dalek Sec has got sass.
You are superior in only one respect.
What is that?
You are better at dying.
Poetry. Mwah. The actual war itself is almost comically one-sided, and if you're a fan of the Cybermen like myself, I think you were done dirty. But Russell T Davies absolutely gets the Daleks, and this scene demonstrates it, walking in the slipstream of writers such as Terry Nation and David Whittaker, who understood that the Daleks were more than just angry blobs in tanks, but they were vindictive, often overconfident, and occasionally very petty. It feels unique, but it's absolutely in character, and a great splash for the Cult of Skaro. Do you want to know who else gets the Daleks? Chris Chibnall.
You are my prisoner now. You are my
I think a lot has gone wrong in the Chibnall era of Doctor Who, but one thing he has been consistently great at is characterising the recurring villains. The Master, the Cybermen, the Judoon, he's really good at tapping into what makes these characters tick instinctively. One of the best demonstrations of this is in Resolution of the Daleks, where the 13th Doctor is trying to stop a single Dalek from rebuilding itself and calling an invasion fleet. The reconnaissance Dalek, after hopping a ride on a woman's back in a really sadistic display of power that the Dalek clearly enjoys, manages to rebuild its casing, and after a tense confrontation, which Jodie Whittaker just kills by the way.
Who are you? Identify!
Oh, mate. I'm the Doctor.
The Dalek flies away and encounters the military in a nearby field, leading to this iconic exchange.
Intercepted unknown drone. We have it surrounded.
Surrender!
Did it just talk?
Allocated surrender period has expired. Consequence extermination!
Because of course the Dalek would give a fake instruction just so it had the tiniest excuse to kill them. The massacre is already brilliant and gloriously filmed by director Wayne Yip. And then the tank rolls in. Wonderful. Also, due to the secrecy of the Chibnall era, there was no Dalek prop for this scene, in case it got spotted on location and its appearance was leaked. The Dalek is entirely CGI for this whole set piece, which is pretty damn impressive, as is the practical remote-controlled prop. I really do like this design. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, Chibnall has had quite a few issues with his era. The Daleks, however, in my opinion, absolutely not one of them.
The Dalek race is supreme!
We don't walk away.
No, we don't walk away. But when we're holding on to something precious, we run. We run and run fast as we can, and we don't stop running until we are out from under the shadow. Now, off you pop. Take the moped. I'll walk.
Hey, the one person in the audience who likes The Rings of Akhaten, raise your hand. Because I think this is possibly the most underrated story of the whole Revive series. Does it stick the landing with all its concepts? Probably not. Does it meander around a bit waiting for the plot to start? Yeah, I think so. Are the costumes a bit cheap? Absolutely, but I still really appreciate what The Rings of Akhaten was going for. But we can almost, as a fandom, almost unanimously agree that the 11th Doctor's confrontation with the Sun God of Akhaten towards the end is a genuine highlight of this incarnation's run. The Sun God of Akhaten is a creature that feeds off the sentimental value of the tributes offered to it by those living on the asteroid Tiamat. With the god now awakened, the Doctor decides that he can't just run away and leave this corner of the universe to be destroyed, so he offers the Sun God the most important thing to him: his memories.
I walked away from the last great Time War. I marked the passing of the Time Lords. I saw the birth of the universe, and I watched as time ran out. Moment by moment until nothing remained. No time, no space. Just me!
This speech represents a lot of things in the context of this series. Firstly, it's one of the few times where the 11th Doctor makes explicit reference to the Time War, showing that its effects do still hang over him. But it's also Clara's first proper trip in the TARDIS. It's the first time that Clara sees the 11th Doctor, who's usually just flippant and flapping his hands and fun-loving and carefree, really open up emotionally. Despite Matt Smith being the youngest actor to play the role, he is still able to communicate the age and the experience of someone who has lived for well over 1,000 years, and what a long life like that can do to someone. Combined with the long song underscoring the scene and Smith's tearful performance, it makes a scene where, when you think about it, where Matt Smith is just yelling at a green screen, feel huge and epic.
I have seen things you wouldn't believe. I have lost things you will never understand. And I know things, secrets that must never be told, knowledge that must never be spoken, knowledge that will make Parasite God's place. So come on then, take it all, baby, have it, you have it all.
While his speech does hold the god off for a minute, it's not until Clara arrives and presents a leaf that represents the loss of her mother and the life that was never lived that the creature collapses in on itself, due to the limitless possibilities that the leaf offers, asking pretty profound questions about the concept of sentimental value, about what's truly valuable to a person. In my opinion, it is peak Doctor Who, finding an inventive and non-violent solution that asks interesting questions about what it means to live in this wild and crazy cosmos. Speaking of spirituality and gods, though, the Doctor versus the Devil isn't something you'd expect to see the show try and pull off in just its second series, but the Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit two-parter decided to pit these two characters against each other, with the 10th Doctor and Rose landing on a nameless planet trapped in the orbit of a black hole. While the Satan Pit gives the Devil a physical form and a body for the Doctor to interact with, what makes him such a great villain in this story is not his design or his strength, it's his intellect and sadistic nature, which is brilliantly demonstrated when he decides to target the socially awkward Toby.
Don't turn around.
Dan. That's not Dan.
Don't look at me.
Who are you?
I have so many names.
If I could...
If you look at me, you will die.
But who are you?
I'm behind you, Toby. I'm right behind you. Don't look at me. One look and you will die.
Now, quick tangent, the show's casting director is Andy Pryor, who has cast for every single episode in the show's 16-year stint, including the upcoming Series 13. Whether or not it was his idea to bring Gabriel Wolf back to voice the devil in this two-parter, I can't say for certain, but whoever did make that call deserves incredible respect. For those of you who don't know, Gabriel Wolf, who voices the Beast in this story, has already voiced a villain in Doctor Who, Sutekh the Destroyer from the 1975 story Pyramids of Mars, which is just incredible symmetry.
Where I tread I leave nothing but dust and darkness. I find that good.
That voice is so chilling, and having the spirit of the beast as the camera itself getting closer to Toby was a simple but inspired piece of direction and cinematography from director James Strong.
I'm reaching out, Toby. I'm so close. Don't turn around. Oh, I can touch you.
After Toby turns around, he discovers that the ancient markings on the pottery he was inspecting have somehow transferred to his skin, and he loses consciousness. And the next time we see him,
he bathes in the black sun. He's walking on the surface of an impossible world, right underneath the pull of a black hole, without a spacesuit, and he gestures to his friend Scooty to join him. When she rejects the offer, he crushes the glass shielding, causing her to be brutally ripped into the vacuum of space. One of the most atmospheric set pieces of the whole show, an incredible villain introduction with a haunting cello medley underscoring it. It combines brilliant imagery with pretty basic ideas to provide a haunting set piece.
Can you give me your full name, please?
James Robert McCrimmon. Jamie.
Thank you. And your friend?
The Doctor.
I can't put that down.
John Smith.
Really?
Aye.
Dr. John Smith.
In the 1960s, while the second Doctor was being treated for a concussion and Patrick Troughton was on holiday for that week, his companion, Jamie McCrimmon, gave the Time Lord a fake name in order to not arouse suspicion, John Smith, which is the name on a piece of medical equipment nearby. For decades, the Doctor would use the John Smith alias on Earth, but it wasn't until 2007 that we properly got to meet him.
My father, Sidney, was a watchmaker from Nottingham. And my mother, Verity, was... well, she was a nurse, actually.
We make such good wives.
Really? Right? Yes.
The Doctor has hidden his Time Lord personality in a fob watch and has disguised himself as a boarding school teacher in the early 20th century to escape from the family of blood. However, when the family find John Smith and hold the school hostage, John has to give up his life, a life he had no say in its creation of, in order to save everyone else, because while the Doctor makes the ultimate sacrifice every other week, for John Smith this is something else entirely.
I'm John Smith. That's all I want to be. John Smith. With his life and his job and his love. Why can't I be John Smith? Isn't he a good man?
Yes, he is.
Why can't I stay?
John Smith was basically born to be killed. all in the name of someone he's not able to meet and doesn't know anything about. To his credit, it's a hard pill to swallow, especially when him and his love, Joan Redfern, are shown a vision of the life they could have together. An ordinary life with marriage, children, grandchildren, and a peaceful death at home, surrounded by the love he's been able to accumulate in a lifespan. A life that the Doctor, someone who will outlive humans thousands of times over, a life he'll never be able to have.
Grandchildren. Everyone's safe.
Everyone's safe. And they all send their love, John.
Well, it's done. Thank you. Did you see?
Was the Doctor's eventual punishment on the family of Blood revenge for taking that life away from John and Joan? Probably not, as John was just a means to an end for the 10th Doctor. But in the end, John was the better man than the Doctor. John would put down his gun, and at his weakest point was able to make the sacrifice, whilst the Doctor walks in death and ironic tortures for the family.
And then we discovered why. Why this Doctor, who had fought with gods and demons, why he'd run away from us and hidden. He was being kind.
Emergency temporal shift!
Oh Daleks, I do love you, but it is hard to escape the fact that you were almost comically overused during the Russell T Davies era. There's only so many final ends and emergency temporal shifts that you can have before these escapes start stretching credibility, and if the Daleks are able to be so consistently defeated in such a short time span, then it makes you wonder why the Time Lords had such an issue with them. After their last appearance in Manhattan midway through Series 3, the show did avoid them for a bit. But when they arrived at the end of Series 4, they needed to make a statement.
I'm receiving a communication from the Earthbound ships. They have a message for the human race.
Put it through. Let's hear it.
Exterminate! 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 Exterminate!
No.
Exterminate! Exterminate!
Oh no!
With the Doctor gone and his old companions scattered across the country receiving the message at the same time, it gives a great demonstration as to just how wide a net Russell T Davies and his era's creative team had cast in the lead up to this finale. Rose, Martha, Captain Jack, Sarah Jane, they've all encountered the Daleks before, and it's up to them and their respective actors' performances to hit home just how dire this situation is without the Doctor. Martha is frightened, Captain Jack kisses his friends at Torchwood goodbye, but the standout here is Sarah Jane, the iconic Elizabeth Sladen, having not heard that iconic battle cry for a lifetime, and now she has a son, who she thinks she's about to lose.
Oh God, he was so young.
And once again, we need to give massive props to director Graham Harper, taking a 2008 BBC budget and depicting a first for Doctor Who, the start of a full-blown Dalek invasion. We've often seen the aftermath, but here, all hell breaks loose, with hundreds of ships descending, blasting apart buildings and crippling our world. The Daleks, once again, are now the masters of Earth.
Supreme Dalek on the bridge!
Soon the Crucible will be complete. We have waited long for this ultimate destiny. Now the Daleks are the masters of Earth. Daleks are the masters of Earth. Daleks are the masters of Earth.
Slitheen, Chelonian, Nestine, Dravin, Sycorax, Hemagoth, Zygon, Atraxi, Draconian. They're all here for the Pandorica.
What are you? What could you possibly be?
Following on from the last entry, the Russell T Davies era would ratchet up the stakes every series. The Daleks destroying the universe, the Daleks and the Cybermen destroying the universe, the Master taking over the universe, the Daleks destroying reality, the Time Lords ending time. You get the idea. Where on earth do you go from here when you're a new showrunner? How does Steven Moffat raise the stakes for his Series 5 finale? Well, the answer lies in the Pandorica, a prison which apparently contains... Well, I'll let the Doctor explain.
There was a goblin, or a trickster, or a warrior. A nameless, terrible thing, soaked in the blood of 1 billion galaxies. The most feared being in all the cosmos. And nothing could stop it, or hold it, or reason with it. One day it would just drop out of the sky and tear down your world.
Towards the end of the episode, as we approach the inevitable cliffhanger, the Pandorica starts opening, and dozens of recognisable species start appearing, including the Autons randomly, you've got the Daleks, Cybermen, Judoon, Sontarans, the Hoiks. Alright, they've all come together at the opening of the Pandorica, and inside it's empty. The Pandorica, it is a prison, but it's waiting to be filled by the Doctor.
You have been scanned, assessed, understood. Doctor.
Scanned? Scanned by what, a box?
Your limits and capacities have been extrapolated.
The Pandorica is ready! Ready for what?
Ready for you!
It's such a great idea that the Doctor's greatest foes, misunderstanding how the universe is about to be destroyed by his exploding TARDIS, have come together to lock him up, with the Doctor helplessly struggling against the Autons who place him inside at the same time that Rory accidentally shoots and kills his wife-to-be. Murray Gold's brilliant theme for Amelia Pond starts playing as the Doctor is locked away, and we see the universe exploding around Earth. Such an incredible cliffhanger and a setup to one of the show's best finales, not to mention working as a great setup for future arcs where Steven Moffat would explore how the universe perceives the Doctor, and whether or not his reckless lifestyle causes more harm than good. How do you raise the stakes after so many potential universe, reality and time-destroying events? Well, you lock up the Doctor, and the only hope left for the universe is a little girl who still believes in stars.
Who's that? It's your daddy.
When Doctor Who came back in 2005, it was definitely wearing a more dramatic hat than its prior iterations. Issues like familial trauma, grief, loss weren't really touched upon much in the classic series, but with Russell T Davies at the helm and modern TV sensibilities, that changed with an emphasis on character and emotion, as well as time and spacefaring adventures. In my opinion, the peak of this approach in the show's debut season came from Father's Day, where Rose Tyler pushes her father out of the way of the oncoming car that was meant to kill him in 1987, but with no Time Lords around, the Reapers show up to cleanse the wound, which even involves killing the Doctor.
I'm the oldest thing in here.
Talk about raising the stakes. But throughout this episode, Pete Tyler has also noticed the car that was meant to kill him circling the block, just waiting for him to collide with it. That is so creepy. With all options exhausted and knowing that he's been given these extra hours and was able to see his daughter all grown up, Pete Tyler takes a decisive action for maybe the first time in his life and goes outside to face the car.
The doctor worked it out way back, but he tried to protect me. Still, he's not in charge anymore. I am.
But you can't.
Who am I, love?
My daddy.
After Pete Tyler collides with the car outside, Rose then becomes the rose-tinted fiction that her drunken mother used to read to her as a child, becoming part of the narrative as she stays with Pete Tyler to make sure he doesn't die alone, before walking hand in hand back to the TARDIS with the Doctor, having crashed into adulthood.
Operation Double is a covert operation outside of normal unit strictures to resettle and rehouse an alien race in secrecy on planet Earth. With UNIT's help, 20 million Zygons have been allowed to take human form, been dispersed around the world, and are now living amongst us. We're making this in case something goes wrong, in case UNIT is infiltrated, in case something occurs to unmask the Zygons, or in case one or both of us dies.
I think in the revived series, the story of the Zygons and Osgood is one of the most interesting attempts at long-form storytelling. The Zygons appeared in the 50th anniversary special, with that subplot ending with the 10th and 11th Doctors using the Black Archive's memory wipe to enforce a peace treaty between UNIT and the Zygons, and two Osgoods, one human, one Zygon. Well, at the end of Series 8, one of the Osgoods is killed by Missy, which causes a potential fracturing of that peace, as it turns out there's 20 million Zygons living amongst humanity. It's a clumsy way to approach the metaphor of immigration and terrorist organisations like ISIS, but it manages to stick the landing for a really interesting two-parter. And I'm glad that this story was a two-parter, because if this was just a 45-minute episode, it would be really hard to justify having the third act comprise of an almost 10-minute pure dialogue sequence where the Doctor tries to stand the Zygon leader down. Taking the form of Clara, Zygon Bonnie stands across a table from Kate Stewart, and the 12th Doctor is in the middle, pleading with Bonnie to stand her revolution down.
You set this up, why?
Because it's not a game, Kate. This is a scale model of war. Every war ever fought right there in front of you. Because it's always the same. When you fire that first shot, no matter how right you feel, you have no idea who's going to die. You don't know whose children are going to scream and burn. How many hearts will be broken? How many lives shattered? How much blood will spill until everybody does what they were always going to have to do from the very beginning? Sit down and talk!
Is this on the nose? Is it the opposite of subtle? Yes to both. However, as I've argued before, that does not necessarily mean bad. Thankfully, when you've got an A-class actor like Peter Capaldi giving this speech, you hang on to his every word. It feels raw, in character, and the fact that there's no music underscoring it until the very end of the scene, it just begs your attention. But do you want to know my favourite part of this scene? The Doctor may act a bit condescendingly to Bonnie.
Oh, it's not fair. Oh, I didn't realize that. It was not fair. But you know what? My TARDIS doesn't work properly, and I don't have my own personal tailor.
The things don't equate.
These things have happened, Zygilla. They are facts.
But this is an act. He's deliberately provoking her. He completely understands and relates to Bonnie. He too has had his hands on a big red button that can end everything, believing himself to be completely justified in doing so. But my favourite moment is when he truly sees Bonnie, and understands that young and reckless people can wear their exclusion as a badge, with Bonnie thinking that she now has to commit and do what she set out to, because she'll never be forgiven or let back in if she tries to reform, and the Doctor, taking the best alternative option, forgives her, and means it.
You're all the same, you screaming kids, you know that? Look at me, I'm unforgivable. Well, here's the unforeseeable. I forgive you. After all you've done, I forgive you.
Capaldi gives this speech such a wonderful rhythm and earnestness and spontaneity, which is undercut by the reveal that he's had this conversation with Bonnie several times before thanks to the Black Archive's memory wipe, which I've no idea who on the creative team thought that was a good idea. Yeah, wipe their minds of the fact that both boxes are empty, but revealing that this is the 16th time this scene has played out, that's no good. But it's a testament to the strength of the dialogue written by Peter Harness and Stephen Moffat, as well as Peter Capaldi's electric performance, that seals the deal. This was a wonderful conclusion to a flawed but interesting two-parter.
No one else will ever have to live like this. No one else will ever have to feel this pain. Not on my watch.
So I'm writing this video about a day after it's been announced that Russell T Davies is returning to Doctor Who to showrun, and there's a lot of celebrations within the fandom. However, some of that celebration feels really misplaced by the demographic of people who think that the now nasty Chibnall, who has definitely insulted your mother and kicked your dog, now that he's leaving the show, it will be less political, less woke, and more subtle with Russell T Davies behind the wheel. Folks, I hate to break it to you, but Russell's era was not only way more political than Chibnall's, but he was pretty damn radical and woke and absolutely not subtle. Case in point.
It'll be quiet with him gone. Still, we'll have more room.
Labour camps. That's what they called them last time.
What do you mean?
It's happening again.
What is? Excuse me? Excuse me, where are you taking her? Where are you going? Oh, where are you going? Where are you going? Where are you going?
Let's take a minute to talk about Wilf. Wilfred Mott made a brief cameo in the 2007 Christmas special Voyage of the Damned as a patriotic newspaper salesman. He was played by Bernard Cribbins, who returned to the series after starring in the 1966 film Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD. When the actor who played Donna Noble's father, Howard Atfield, unfortunately passed away during filming of Series 4, the production team brought Cribbins back and retconned him to be Donna's grandfather. Cribbins is a wonderful addition to the Doctor Who universe, always fun and warm and serving as a great contrast to Donna's strict mother, as Wilf is always supporting and enthusiastic about his granddaughter's travels across the stars. Depressingly, however, Wilfred got brought down to Earth in the Series 4 story Turn Left, where a change in the timelines resulted in the death of the Doctor in The Runaway Bride, leaving all of the Series 3 and Series 4 invasions to take place with no one to stop them. Companions die, cities are destroyed, it's carnage, and it's incredibly sobering. The Noble family survived the crashing of the Titanic into London because they were out of the city at the time, and their family are relocated to Leeds, along with 7 million other refugees in the south of England, where they move in with the Merchandani family and the Colasanto family, the latter of whom are a hugely enthusiastic family of Italians. And all through the story, Wilfred is the voice of optimism. Applying wartime spirit, he tries to see the bright side and see his family through the non-stop invasions and crises.
Well, always loved a sing-song.
But Donna wakes up one day and discovers that the Colasanto family are being taken away. They're going to labour camps, despite there being no work. It's England for the English now, and while the father, Rocco, tries to put a brave face on it, Wilf knows exactly what's going on.
Wilfred, my capitan.
Now Turn Left, which obviously influenced its spiritual successor Years and Years, also penned by Russell T Davies, it's only gotten more relevant and harder to watch as time has gone on in a further divided and radicalised world, so let's not bring the mood down too much. But when it comes to Wilf, he's possibly the MVP of Series 4, with a lot of his characterisation actually coming from Bernard Cribbins himself, who served in the military in the late 1940s and the early 1950s, but he never killed anyone, which served as the motivation behind this line.
You're an old soldier, sir. Only you were too late. The war was won and passed you by.
I did my duty.
You never killed a man.
No, I didn't. No, I did not, no, but don't say that like it's shameful.
Anyway, it's kind of hard to transition to the next entry when we're talking about, you know, labour camps. So, next entry.
I've come to help. I'm the Doctor. Impossible.
Exterminate! Exterminate!
Let me out!
Exterminate!
Okay, cast your minds back to around 2004, you're working on Doctor Who Series 1, and you've just got the rights to use the Daleks from the Terry Nation estate. After all, are you really a revival of Doctor Who if you don't have the Daleks? Well, now, you actually have to bring them back. Sure, they sent kids behind the sofa in the 1960s, but by the 1970s and the 1980s, their impact had significantly lessened. Oh, they were iconic and recognisable, but they weren't really the tanks of terror that trundled onto screens when the show was in black and white. Thankfully, for Series 1 Episode 6, we had the brilliant team of director Joe Ahern and writer Rob Shearman adapting his own Big Finish story Jubilee, spearheading the return of the Daleks. Now, the surprise factor was lost due to, the Next Time trailers and the title of the episode, but it says a lot that even 16 years later, this introduction to the Metaltron, locked in Henry Van Statten's cage, is still incredibly atmospheric and effective, with the Ninth Doctor walking quite literally into darkness as he's confronted with the last of the race that he fought in the Time War. The war is long over, but the Doctor's got some trauma to work through.
Fantastic! Oh, fantastic! Powerless! Look at you. The great space dustbin. How does it feel? What for? What are you going to do to me?
We've never seen the Ninth Doctor even remotely like this before. He's positively insidious, lording over his supposed superiority over the captive Dalek, walking laps around it, intimidating it, even mocking it. But the Dalek is able to give as good as it gets.
And what of the Time Lords?
Dead. They burnt with you. The end of the last great Time War. Everyone lost.
And the coward survived.
With the scene culminating in the Doctor deciding to take matters into his own hands, a far cry from the beginning of the scene where the Doctor walked into the cage and sympathetically looked at those torturer tools. He even claims the Dalek's battle cry and tries to exterminate the last Dalek in existence. Eccleston is terrifying, yes, the performance is great, but it's also just so thoughtfully written and directed. If you want to learn more about how this scene was assembled, check out my shot-by-shot video with Joe Ahern, who talked about the shooting of this scene and also the different approaches that he and Eccleston took. One version that they filmed of the scene had the Doctor cowering up into a ball by the door out of fear. And also, while the design of the Dalek is still recognisably 100% Dalek, its bulky armour, which is showcased by the damaged Metaltron, and the brand new headlamps in the eye stalk, they're subtle but important changes to modernise a design that was outdated by the 1970s. But yeah, I've talked about this scene to death, but I think it warrants the celebration. Doctor Who had technically been back on the air for over a month already, and had already showcased some brilliant episodes, but I think it was with Dalek that the show truly arrived, and showcasing the Daleks as a sadistic intellectual force before it's able to operate its weaponry again was the best way to go. Truly a fantastic episode.
Why don't you just die? You would make a good Dalek.
As someone who was a bit disillusioned by most of the Stephen Moffat era, I found myself really excited when it was announced that Chris Chibnall would be taking over and we'd be getting Jodie Whittaker as the 13th Doctor. The end result, with Series 11 at least, had the show undergoing a massive makeover and the biggest overhaul of the style guidelines since the show's 2005 revival, with new cameras, new special effects team, a new composer. Series 11 had such an incredible vibe to it. Chibnall treated the show like an ITV drama, which might not have always tonally worked, but it gave us something really fresh and new. For The Woman Who Fell to Earth, we had brilliant direction and work from Jamie Childs, but for me at least, it was the next episode that really blew me away.
The ship is on the verge of total shutdown.
How can a planet be in the wrong place? It should have been back there where I scooped you up. We should be in its gravity belt by now.
Well, we're not.
I can see that.
Hi. I can smell burning.
You were right. She is still alive.
Yes, you need to stay locked in the medipod. Where's Ryan and Graham? There! The planet's there.
How can it be there?
Does it even have a name?
Only a symbol or a warning. Closest word is desolation. Right, I can do this. I'm not going to be beaten. Move! Still got a few tricks on my sleeve.
Manual shield activation. Well, this thing should be on Antiques Roadshow.
Right, blast shields up. Don't know how long they'll last for, though.
Brilliant. About to crash land on desolation. Real grounds for optimism.
Do you not understand anything? I can't even get us there because the fuel I've wasted. Because of the fuel I've wasted scooping you up!
Much like 42, this story, The Ghost Monument, penned by Chris Chibnall, isn't especially interesting on the page. However, it's elevated significantly by the work of director Mark Tonderay, who helmed the South Africa filming block, which also included Rosa. The Ghost Monument was the most alive Doctor Who had felt for a very long time, with the 13th Doctor and Yaz getting scooped up out of space by Epso, who is trying to land his ship, the Cerebos, on the planet's desolation with very little fuel remaining. The camera work here is incredible, but we also have the frenetic performances from the cast, the lack of music but the sound design and the set design working full throttle to give the scene a real tangible quality. We have these really lengthy extended camera shots which are already impressive, but when we've got Epso opening up the floor gratings and moving mechanisms, pressing panels on the wall only for sparks to fly, and then him and the Doctor agreeing to jettison the rear of the ship to give them the last boost they need to reach the planet. So Epso then goes into the back of the ship, gets the survival gear, gives it to the rest of the cast, and then they lose the back of the ship, which then drifts out of view, all in one take. No other episode of Doctor Who in its 55-year history at this point had ever felt like this. This is incredible, and while Graham and Ryan have their own much more calm experience landing on Desolation with Angstrom, that calmness is interrupted by the Cerebus coming into view in the sky and crash landing beside them. Why are they running straight on instead of going up the small banks beside them? Honestly, at this point, I don't really care, because this was the best opening to an episode I could have asked for. Oh, and one final bit of context, The Woman Who Fell to Earth didn't have the new opening title sequence, which means it was the Ghost Monument which preceded this incredible set piece with possibly the greatest version of this theme tune that we've ever had by Segun Akinola. Those opening 7 minutes of the Ghost Monument feels like nothing else in Doctor Who's history, and I adore it for exactly that reason.
Doctor! Sorry about the mess.
name's Tyler. Mickey Smith. Allow me to introduce K9. Well, K9 Mark III to be precise.
You know you've got one hell of an episode when you genuinely have no idea which moment you're going to choose from it. School Reunion from Series 2, from writer Toby Whithouse, has the 10th Doctor and Rose infiltrate a secondary school to try and uncover alien intervention with the students there. We've got the Doctor masquerading as a science teacher.
Physics. 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 When he's getting all this down.
You've got the amazing dynamic between the Doctor and the Demon Headmaster Mr. Finch, played by Anthony Head, with their confrontation by the pool being such a great scene.
Your people were peaceful to the point of indolence. You seem to be something new.
K9's introduction and subsequent death. I'm just spoiled for choice here, but I had to settle on one, which, as the best things often do, requires a bit of context.
I'm a journalist, Sarah Jane Smith.
We need somebody around here to make the coffee.
So in 1974, towards the end of the Third Doctor's era, we were introduced to Sarah Jane Smith, played by Elizabeth Sladen, who had managed to sneak into UNIT, pretending to be her aunt so she can get a news story. She witnesses the Third Doctor regenerate, and becomes a long-running best friend to the Fourth Doctor for several years, facing the Daleks, Cybermen, Zygons,
and all manner of space thuggery.
But their time together is brought to an abrupt end, when the Fourth Doctor is summoned to Gallifrey, and other species are forbidden. The Doctor drops her off at... not Croydon, though he does send her a version of K9 for her to get her own spin-off series and occasional reunion. Now, when the show came back in 2005, it was more important to establish itself instead of paying lip service and referencing the classic series all the time. But when it became an instant cultural smash hit, and a whole generation of kids started reading up on past adventures, buying the DVDs, researching on the old Doctor Who websites, myself included, with that in mind, Series 2 could draw more explicit references to its past.
I'm Dr. James McCrimmon from the township of Balamory.
And with its reintroduction of Sarah Jane Smith, played by Elizabeth Sladen, that link to the classic series is 100% confirmed. While she doesn't initially recognise the Doctor, he quickly makes his presence known to her, and she's a bit jealous of his new companion Rose, and the Doctor becomes more aware of his immortality when compared to his human companion. It appears that Sarah Jane never quite got over being, quote, dumped by the Doctor, and the Doctor even learns that he never dropped Sarah Jane off at Croydon.
Where was it?
Aberdeen.
Right.
With the day saved, Sarah Jane turns down becoming a companion of the Doctor again, and vows to find a life of her own, which she would do, in fact around 5 seasons worth. But before we can get to that, we get a heartfelt goodbye, 30 years in the making.
Goodbye, Doctor.
Oh, it's not goodbye.
You say it, please, this time. Say it.
Goodbye.
My Sarah Jane.
Okay, that was a lot of lead up, I'm really sorry. Now, what I love about this is not only the closure, the acknowledgement, and the building upon of the show's past, but it perfectly encapsulates Russell T Davies's ultimate philosophy for the programme. Even when a song is over, the story ultimately never ends. The world of Doctor Who is a massive, complex, insane family. A family that's always growing, and its legacy is passed on through all our lives. And even though Elizabeth Sladen and Sarah Jane Smith may now be gone, her legacy, her story, never ends.
Whatever you've got planned, forget it. I'm the Doctor. I'm 904 years old.
I'm a Time Lord. I'm from the planet Gallifrey in the constellation of Kasterborous. Every waking second I can see what is, what was, what could be, what must not.
I'm from the planet Gallifrey in the constellation of Kasterborous. I am the oncoming storm.
I'm not just a Time Lord. I'm the last of the Time Lords. That's the burden of the Time Lord, Donna. But I'm the man who's going to save your lives and all 6 billion people on the planet below.
And you are basically just a rabbit, aren't you?
So, we all kind of agree that the 10th Doctor was a little bit extra in retrospect. I mean, David Tennant played the character incredibly well, and it made for iconic television, but he was a bit self-important. I mean, he had good reason to be. You know, he's the last of the Time Lords. He's run around this universe for almost a century and has a galaxy-sized brain. Plus, you know, when you've got Billy Piper and Freema Agyeman fawning over you, it's understandable that you would develop a bit of an ego. The 10th Doctor would give speeches, save universes, turn enemies away by just his reputation. You all know this. The traditional Doctor Who formula has the Doctor arrive in a situation and everyone just trusts him and goes along with him because of his sheer charisma and his knowledge. But what happens if you put the 10th Doctor in a room with the wrong people? What happens if that egotism and his intellect is weaponized against him?
You called us humans like you're not one of us.
That's what he said. And the wiring. He went into that panel and opened up the wiring.
That was after.
But how did you know what to do?
Because I'm clever.
I see. Well, that makes things clear. And what are we then? Idiots? That's not what I meant.
If you're clever, then what are we?
You've been looking down on us from the moment we walked in.
Even if he goes, he's practically volunteered.
Oh, come on! Just listen to yourself, please!
Do you mean we throw him out as well?
Yes, Midnight is incredible, possibly one of the best episodes in the whole history of the show, which sees the 10th Doctor taking a space bus on a tour around the diamond planet of Midnight. Despite the environment outside being inhospitable, something manages to sneak into the bus and seemingly possesses one of the passengers, Skye, who starts repeating everything the survivors say before catching up to them and capturing their voices in real time. It's an incredibly simplistic but freaky conceit, where the one thing the antagonist can do is repeat, but it still puts the fear of God into the passengers who are just normal humans. The professor and his assistant, the hostess, the family with the father with a chip on his shoulder, the definition of a Karen as a mother, and their son Merlin. And because Russell T Davies has no faith in humanity, it does not take long for the freaky situation to get the best of these frightened humans, who contemplate the thought of throwing Skye out, despite not knowing what has possessed her, or even if Skye could still be in there. The Doctor is trying to keep control of the situation and trying to play the hero, but this episode turns all of his strengths as an authority figure into a weakness. His use of the name John Smith gets called out.
John Smith, you're real.
He's lying. Look at his face.
His eyes are the same as hers.
Why won't you tell us?
His knowledge and mechanical know-how is used against him because he opened up the panel and the wiring. Him revealing that he's a traveller who just shows up to places often is met with intrigue from the supporting cast, but is instead here used as skepticism.
The rest of you, tickets in advance. He just turned up out of the blue. Where from?
I'm just travelling. I'm a traveller, that's all.
Like an immigrant.
The Doctor was talking with Skye at the start of the episode, which causes the rest of the passengers to think that they're working together.
You were talking to her. All on your own before all the trouble, right at the front. You were talking to that Skye woman, the two of you together. I saw you.
Yeah, well, we all did.
And you went into the cabin.
What were you saying to her?
I was just talking.
Saying what?
The Doctor verbalizing his thought process, which is normally a way to exposit to the audience and move the story forward, gets weaponized against the Doctor as the passengers around him get more and more paranoid. The Doctor's exposital function in the episode is even used against him.
First she repeats, then she catches up. What's the next stage?
Next stage of what?
It feels like everyone else in this episode thinks that they're the main character, that they're the hero, but, you know, they're not. It's the Doctor who's the hero, you know, it's his name in the show title. But the rest of the cast don't know that. The metatextual functions of storytelling itself seems to be breaking down around the cast. A cast who, thanks to a really great but slow-paced opening act, we really got to know and enjoy the company of.
And I said, where's the pool? And he said, the pool is abstract.
These people did not start out hostile, they're just holiday makers in a situation beyond their understanding. All the while, throughout this entire scene, we've got the possessed Skye echoing every single character. It's an incredible story, taking possibly the most egotistical Doctor and turning that very nature against him in the scariest situation you can think of.
Listen to me right now, because you need me, all of you. If we are going to get out of this, then you need me.
So you keep saying. You've been repeating yourself more than her.
You promised me you said I would never be converted.
That was designated a lie.
The revived series really struggled with what to do thematically with the Cybermen. The show knew that they were brilliant and worthy of adapting into the 21st century, and they did have some great moments, but the stories surrounding them just generally felt really underwhelming. The Cybermen also often played second fiddle to more interesting villains like the Daleks or the Master, or were just a handy threat to throw into a story that didn't need establishing, like in The Next Doctor or Closing Time. And while Nightmare in Silver tried to take steps to tip the balance in their favour and make the Cybermen scary again, the weak script and paradoxically the overpowered nature of the creatures just lessened their impact. It just feels a bit wrong, at least in that context, for the Cybermen to be an epic, invincible, unstoppable army, especially since expanded media, most notably Big Finish's Spare Parts, has shown us what it takes to really get the most out of the Cybermen. The story of the Cybermen isn't an action story, it's not a war story, or even just a sci-fi one. The story of the Cybermen is a tragedy.
Pain. 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 Pain.
So, the 12th Doctor, Bill, Nardole and Missy land on a Mondasian colony ship which is caught in the pull of a black hole. Due to the massive size of the ship, time dilation has caused time at one end of the ship to move at a much slower rate than at the other end of the ship, resulting in thousands of years passing for those living near the engines, and those on the observation deck just minutes go by. And in order for those near the engines to survive the harsh conditions, they start slowly converting their population into primitive Cybermen in an incredibly painful procedure. Bill winds up becoming one of them, but not before she makes her way through the hospital and discovers those who are recovering from the procedure in this frightening horror set piece. And in a genuinely horrifying reveal that I'm kind of surprised the BBC let slip, the revelation that the dials on the top of those fluid packs, they're not nullifying the pain, they're just muting the patient. Just indicative of the type of culture in this society now, where it's better to just mute those who are suffering in pain than really dealing with it.
Pain. 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 Pain.
Sorry, mate.
Pain.
I'm really sorry. Sorry.
While the Cybermen here do upgrade over the centuries, this story showed that the weaker, earlier, more primitive Mondasian designs with their sing-song voices and cloth faces, they might be the most terrifying designs of all.
Care? No, why should I care?
As this episode goes out of its way to show us that they did used to be like us, but they upgraded and made the ultimate physical and mental sacrifice because they felt like they had to. That's the ultimate tragedy of the Cybermen. They're a story of survival, not of upgrading or becoming a militaristic force. Whether it's Mondas, Telos, Planet 14, the Cybermen may be an inevitability for humanity, but it will be a last resort. And it will hurt.
This won't stop you feeling pain, but it will stop you caring about it.
Know this, Time Lord. You are not alone.
Okay, I'm setting the scene. So me and my friends are around 14-15 years old, and Doctor Who is in its 3rd series. We'd spent a few years learning about the classic series and all the new villains who could make an appearance. Series 1 had the Daleks, Series 2 had the Cybermen, so Series 3, it had to be the Master, right? And there's been this Mr. Saxon guy showing up in the trailers, and yeah, that's gotta be him, right? But we know how it goes by now. We've got the 2-part finale, so we'll just make it through Utopia to get us to those final 2 episodes where we'll finally meet the Master again. But you know what? I'm sure it will still be an awesome episode. It's atmospheric, with the 10th Doctor and Martha being taken by the TARDIS to the end of the universe. Captain Jack is back when that used to be cause for celebration.
Doctor?
And here on the planet Malcasero, we find Professor Yana and his assistant Chantho trying to ready a rocket to take the last of the human race to Utopia, and Professor Yana is played by the iconic Derek Jacobi, who's a bit clumsy and short-tempered, but earnest and lovely. And he also happens to hear the sound of drums in his head, as if they're getting closer. While the Doctor and Jack reminisce whilst trying to fix the ship, Yana is left alone with Martha and Chantho, and appears to be called to certain keywords, like the TARDIS, the Time Vortex and more, causing him to break down. Is this just an old man struggling to wrap his head around this broader understanding of the universe? Or is it something else?
Professor, what is it though?
It's time travel. They say there was time travel back in the old days. I never believed. But what would I know? Stupid old man. Never could keep time. Always late, always lost. Even this thing never worked.
So it's time to flash back to number 27 on this list, when the Doctor put his Time Lord consciousness in a fob watch, and it seems that Yana has done the same. Thanks to Martha drawing attention to it though, Yana can now see the watch, and while you'd think the Doctor might be overjoyed at the fact that he's not the last of the Time Lords, that depends on which Time Lord Professor Yana is, leading to this incomparable reveal.
Professor Yana though?
Graham Harper, you mad master, you've done it again. Now this character has since been referred to as the War Master, the master who fought in the last Great Time War before fleeing and hiding his identity. Big Finish may have expanded on this character, but in Utopia, he's only around for less than 5 minutes before regenerating into John Simm as Mr. Saxon. So this is why you get an actor like Jacobi, a theatrical icon in the UK who can make the most out of such little screen time, because that turn to the camera, that slight head tilt as all of the strange creatures blares in the background, it's genuinely scary. His voice is strangely soft, but his actions are strong and decisive. His demeanour from Professor Yana has completely changed, to the extent where I'm genuinely sad to see the lovely Professor cease to exist and replaced by possibly the most depraved version of the Master ever created. And as a terrified Doctor tries to force his way back into the laboratory, side note, Tennant's energy really goes a long way into hitting home just how scared the audience should be right now.
What did he say, Mother?
What did he say?
The Master turns an electrified cable onto his faithful companion Chantho, and finally revealing and confirming his identity to over 7 million viewers at home.
That is not my name!
The Professor was an invention. So perfect a disguise that I forgot who I am.
Then who are you?
I am the Master.
But it's not just the Master reveal and the performance that makes this such an iconic and incredible cliffhanger, but how the gravity of the situation keeps getting denser as the scene goes on, leaving the audience with so many questions. The Master has the Doctor's severed hand, he has a TARDIS, what on earth did the Doctor do to it before it dematerialized? What does the Master know about Utopia, and will the future kind rip our heroes apart? Forget the stolen Earth, I genuinely think that it's Utopia which gives us the best cliffhanger ending of the Russell T Davies era. Well, except for one, but we're a few more spots on the list away from that.
The Master. Reborn.
They're checking their land for people who don't belong.
This is our home. Everyone's welcome here.
I know what you did to the holy man. There's nothing holy about a man who would approve your union. Better he die than defile himself. My baby brother.
Wow, I'm going to piss off a lot of people for having a 13th Doctor story in the top 15, but you have to make an exception and you have to give credit where it's due. Demons of the Punjab is a crowning achievement for the show, utilising its time travel premise in a way that original producer Sidney Newman would have been proud of, as the 13th Doctor, Yaz, Ryan and Graham travel to 1947 India, the day before the partition, which will result in the deaths of millions and the displacement of tens of millions. Due to the fact that in the UK this historical event isn't really taught in schools, despite millions of UK citizens growing up in the shadow of the partition, it's an event that we, as a culture generally, don't really talk about, and so many people in India died unmourned and unknown, and in this story, one of them is Prem, who fought in World War II with his brother Manish, and Manish, having since become radicalised by Hindu nationalists, decries his Hindu brother for marrying a Muslim woman, Umbreen, Yaz's grandmother. As the nationalists and Manish arrive to break up the union, Prem goes out there to sacrifice himself to buy his wife time to escape, and attempts one last-ditch effort to try and reason with Manish, who is just overcome with his grief and rage, and he's just too far gone.
Please, Manish.
And the Thajarians appear nearby, essentially locking in Prem's fate, and he's shot in the field. It's also just so thematically powerful as well to hear that gunshot happen off screen. The whole episode has included radio news broadcasts announcing the border changes, rioting and fighting in neighbouring villages. The discontent, it's in the air, it's in the soundscape, with Prem's death being one of millions, shown as the Thajarians lift his spirit amongst so many unnamed and unseen who were killed during the partition. It's an incredible melding of theme and narrative to create a truly special episode and a climax that breaks my heart every time.
How does that feel?
Brilliant, fantastic, molto bene, great big universe packed into my brain. You know you can fix that chameleon circuit if you just tried hotbinding the fragment links and superseding the binary. I'm fine.
Oh no, not more heartbreak. Just as Journey's End tried to give us the most uplifting climax possible, with the Dr. Donna saving all of reality from the Daleks and Davros, and the Children of Time flying the Earth triumphantly back home, it's celebrations all around, and even Rose's final goodbye is given a bit of a positive spin with her own mortal Meta-Crisis Doctor to keep. However, the price for such a positive victory has to be paid, and that comes from Donna Noble's mind burning up due to the Time Lord consciousness in her brain. Obviously, we knew by this episode that Catherine Tate was a fierce dramatic presence over the 13 episodes, and it's so gut-wrenching to see her understand full well what is happening to her but trying to deny it, and her pleading with the Doctor to not wipe her memory. Tennant is brilliantly solemn as usual here, but it's Catherine Tate who really gets the tears flowing.
Oh, but I can't go back. Don't make me go back. Doctor, please don't make me go back.
Donna. Oh, Donna Noble, I am so sorry. But we had the best of times. The best.
No, please, no.
Then, with Donna's memory wiped, the Doctor drops her off at home and lets her grandfather and her mother know what's happened, which is a bitter pill to swallow.
You can't mention me or any of it for the rest of her life.
But the whole world's talking about it. We travelled across space.
It'll just be a story. One of those Donna Noble stories where she missed it all again.
But she was better with you.
Don't say that.
No, she was.
And the Doctor giving us this killer mic drop after Donna Noble has spent an entire series not thinking she was special or important or worthwhile, all of that self-doubt and animosity that the Doctor has clearly noticed gets paid off in one killer rebuke.
And for one moment, one shining moment, she was the most important woman in the whole wide universe.
She still is. She's my daughter.
Then maybe you should tell her that once in a while.
Sometimes you don't need a character's explicit death to provide stakes or a sad ending. Sometimes it's the loss of a character's growth and experience which can be just as depressing to watch unfold, with Donna Noble now back to how she was before the runaway bride, before she could broaden her horizons and change for the better thanks to the Doctor and time and space. Reality is saved, but the Doctor has lost his best mate. Wilfred has lost the granddaughter who shared his enthusiasm for the stars, and Donna, her loss is incalculable, and she'll never even know it.
Donna, I was just going.
Yeah, see ya. I'll tell you what though, you're wasting your time with that one, because Susie Mayer, she went on that dating site and she saw him. No, listen, this is important. Susie Mayer wouldn't lie, not unless it was about calories.
What do I do?
What you've always done. Be a doctor.
Oh, there was no way this story was going to get missed off the list. Stephen Moffat's celebration for the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who is a top-to-bottom delight, with incredible scene after incredible scene, whilst also giving us one of the best and most memorable one-off characters in the history of the show, the War Doctor. This is the Doctor who pressed the button to end the Time War and wiped out all of Gallifrey and all of the Daleks, and he's played by the incredible John Hurt. I had so many moments to choose from here. The first meeting of the three Doctors in this story, War, 10 and 11.
It's, timey-wimey thing.
Timey what? Timey-wimey?
I'd no idea where he picks that stuff up.
Their conversation in the Tower of London, breaking out of the Gallifrey Falls no more painting, but also that incredible scene of the three in the barn on Gallifrey where they decide to push the button together, having come to terms with their younger self's actions, before realising that there might be another way.
I have had 400 years to think about this. I changed my mind.
In the same way, the War Doctor used his screwdriver to calculate an equation over centuries in the Tower of London, the Doctors decide to cross their own time streams to solve the calculation which could trap Gallifrey in a pocket universe. And folks, I can't quite describe the feeling of watching this special on November 23rd, 2013 in a packed movie theatre, but this was the scene that got the biggest reaction from the crowd.
Morning, the War Council of Gallifrey. This is the Doctor.
You might say I've been doing this all my lives.
Good luck. Stand by. Ready. Commencing calculations. Zoom me there.
Across the boundaries that divide one universe from another.
Got to lock onto his coordinates. And for my next trick.
Yes, it's archive footage and impressionist, but the Day of the Doctor managed to assemble all 12 Doctors, from Hartnell to Smith, as their TARDISes circle Gallifrey and prepare to do the unthinkable, win the Time War. But wait, did I say all 12 Doctors?
No, sir. Ah! All 13!
I've never seen an audience cheer that much over eyebrows. This epic climactic scene did a great job of allowing Stephen Moffat to retcon the Time War, while still allowing for the 9th and 10th Doctor's own journeys in prior seasons to not feel undercut, as well as giving the War Doctor a triumphant send-off. Gallifrey stands.
Gallifrey stands!
Without hope, without witness, without reward.
So, I think as a fandom, we've collectively forgotten just how brilliant the Doctor Falls is. Like, I know that the consensus is that it's great, but I still think it's somehow underrated. Yeah, the Cybermen don't quite fulfill their setup from World Enough in Time, but in terms of giving us an incredible conclusion to the 12th Doctor's character arc, pairing him with Missy on the brink of reform, but being tempted by the person that she used to be, quite literally, yeah, this episode is terrific. Lots of picks here, from Cyber Bill, Rachel Talale's direction, but you probably already know what I'm going to pick here. When the Doctor, trapped on floor 0507 of the Mondasian colony ship, has the Cyber army approaching, and no hope of survival, so he pleads with his fellow renegades to stand with him.
I'm not trying to win. I'm not doing this because I want to beat someone, or because I hate someone, or because I want to blame someone. It's not because it's fun. God knows it's not because it's easy. It's not even because it works, because it hardly ever does. I do what I do because it's right. Because it's decent. And above all, it's kind. It's just that. Just kind.
Obviously, Peter Capaldi breaks my heart with this performance, and the lack of music does the dialogue such a service, despite the overkill on the dark colour correction. But the killer for this scene, for me at least, is this line.
Who I am. It's where I stand, where I stand. It's where I fall.
Because this is the Doctor distilled. Because he's always travelling, he's always fighting, he's always standing up against evil. So of course, that's the only situation where he would fall. It's the same philosophy that has the Doctor in Heaven Sent dying over and over and over again for billions of years, but still getting back up. Where the Doctor in Series 10 is blinded at the end of Oxygen, only to keep on going for a few more episodes because like blindness is ever going to stop him from trying to save the universe. How the Doctor is currently holding back regeneration after being blasted by a Cyberman earlier in the story, but is determined to hold out until he can get the children of Floor 0507 to safety. He is what stands between the innocent citizens of this town and an incredible threat, which is basically how the 11th Doctor regenerated as well. The Doctor Falls, as in the title of the episode, isn't a mournful title or a foreboding one. It's one of triumph, because the only way the Doctor can fall is if he stands. If it wasn't for Twice Upon a Time, this would be the perfect cap to the Steven Moffat era, a speech so powerful that it even changes Missy's mind. And the Master then shoots her in the back. How brilliant is this episode?
Did you miss me?
Just as we mentioned in the last entry how effective a conclusion to an era can be, equal or perhaps greater importance can be placed on how an era opens. How a Doctor is introduced is vital to that Doctor's impact within the show and pop culture, which is why it was so brave and bold for Russell T Davies to have the 10th Doctor napping in bed in the Christmas Invasion for about 40 minutes, almost the length of an entire normal episode of the show, before he arrives on that Sycorax spaceship. This was a great introduction, and an incredible run of episodes followed for the 10th Doctor. David Tennant, by 2009, was just as recognisable in the role as Tom Baker was before him, a quintessential Doctor. So, how do you follow that?
Article 57 of the Shadow Proclamation. This is a fully established level 5 planet. And you were going to burn it? What? Did you think no one was watching? You lot. Back here, now. Okay. Now I've done it.
No one can possibly envy the position that Steven Moffat was put in 2010. The BBC were talking about just outright ending the show when David Tennant left, but here's Steven Moffat casting a really young, relatively unknown actor to fill those boots. Can it be done? Should it be done? Well, by the time Matt Smith has crashed in Amelia Pond's garden and eaten fish fingers with custard, yeah, he's the Doctor, absolutely. But it's still not quite right. He's using his predecessor's sonic screwdriver. He's literally wearing the tattered, raggedy shirt of the 10th Doctor throughout the whole episode, until he needs to confront the Atraxi after stopping their plan to incinerate the Earth. He confronts the Atraxi on the roof of the hospital mid-costume change, only to immediately set up into motion Steven Moffat's mission statement for the 11th Doctor, someone who can turn a threat around with just his reputation, for better or for worse.
Is this world protected? You're not the first lot to have come here. Oh, there have been so many. And what you've got to ask is, what happened to them? Hello. I'm the Doctor. Basically, run.
Then, having put on his new tweed jacket and bow tie, the 11th Doctor literally steps through the hologram of his predecessor, fully formed and ready to state his name, as Murray Gold's brand new I Am the Doctor theme plays. The Atraxi flee, and now that the 11th Doctor is finally here, the TARDIS is ready. This is, in my opinion, the best introduction to a brand new Doctor in the show's history. And with the 12th Doctor's final story, if you don't count Twice Upon a Time, the Steven Moffat era was bookended by some of the greatest moments in the history of the show.
Okay. What have you got for me this time?
all for wearing your ID cards. They'll help to identify the bodies.
In the classic series, the show was predominantly broadcast as 25 to 50-minute episodes, with the majority of them ending in a cliffhanger. This serialization was something that was understandably gutted in the revival, paving the way for more standalone stories with the occasional 2 or 3-parter, or in Series 13's case, a 6-parter. Now, it's pretty easy to summarize the cliffhangers in one of 2 ways. Imminent death, like being cornered in The Empty Child and having the Doctor's plane shot down in the Zygon invasion, or a major reveal, like River Song's identity in A Good Man Goes to War, or Cyberbill's conversion in Word Enough in Time, or sometimes, like in Utopia, it's both. Basically, cliffhangers primarily revolve around the situation in the episode getting significantly worse or more complicated, and a lot of the time, the Daleks are involved. It's basically a classic series staple for cliffhangers to revolve around the Daleks about to kill the Doctor. Well, it seems that after 42 years we're going to get another cliffhanger in this vein, as the 9th Doctor is on the Bad Wolf station, which has been using morbid game shows to transport the contestants across space to a hiding Dalek army that survived the Time War. With 500,000 Daleks about to advance and with Rose Tyler their captive, the Daleks give the Doctor an ultimatum.
The fleet is almost ready. You will not intervene.
Oh, really? Why's that then?
We have your associate. You will obey or she will be exterminated.
No.
Explain yourself.
I said no.
What is the meaning of this negative?
It means no.
But she will be destroyed.
No! Because this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna rescue her. I'm gonna save Rose Tyler from the middle of the Dalek fleet, and then I'm gonna save the Earth, and then, just to finish off, I'm gonna wipe every last stinking Dalek out of the sky!
But you have no weapons, no defenses, no plan!
Yeah. And doesn't that scare you to death?
This cliffhanger is astonishing for multiple reasons. A, Eccleston's pure determination in that performance, like he's looking at that screen like the Daleks have just littered in Heaton Park. B, the triumphant music from Murray Gold. And C, we're seeing a mass-scale Dalek army for the first time in the show's history. But I think the most important aspect here is that this is not a cliffhanger for the Doctor. This is not a cliffhanger for Rose. This is a cliffhanger for the Daleks. We don't know how the Doctor is going to overcome these incredible odds, but we know that he's going to do it, because he promised Rose. And the Daleks are terrified, and they bring their invasion plans forward. Yes, there's uncertainty, and obviously the battle won't be easy, but this cliffhanger that ends Bad Wolf and leads into the parting of the ways is not one of imminent death or a massive reveal. It's one of triumph.
Rose?
Yes, Doctor?
I'm coming to get you.
The Doctor is initiating hostile action. The stratagem must advance. Begin the invasion of Earth. The Doctor will be exterminated.
But in a bigger picture sort of way, it's a great contrast to show how much the Doctor has changed. He's the Time Lord who won the Time War. He pressed the button that wiped out the Daleks and the Time Lords. He's able to talk a big game here before the fight starts. But when it comes down to it, he's a changed man. Can he press that button again? Maybe not. Especially after this.
What are you doing?
Software patch. Gonna email the upgrade. You want moves, Rose? I'll give you moves. Everybody lives, Rose. Just this once. Everybody lives!
Yeah, I already kind of did a lot of the lead in here, but yeah, this moment is the Ninth Doctor victorious. On a cold night in World War II, a gas mask zombie infection is making its way through the people still in London, and with every preceding Ninth Doctor story having had multiple deaths and casualties, as well as him overcoming the losses he suffered as a result of the Time War, this is an absolute win. Sure, the Doctor can't dance and he doesn't have a sexy spaceship or a sonic blaster, but he's able to save the world, stop the bombs from falling, reunite Nancy with her son Jamie, and fix everyone without a single shot being fired. And he even finds time to potentially introduce the welfare state, because the Doctor dances to his own tempo. He's an in the mood type of Glenn Miller fan.
Rose, I'm trying to resonate concrete.
But yeah, I've talked about this scene to death. This is a shorter segment, I'm sorry, but it's just joy incarnate. I'm sure absolutely nothing could bring my spirits down and upset me after this. Absolutely nothing at all.
Look at you beaming away like your Father Christmas.
Who says I'm not Red Bicycle when you were 12?
What?
And everybody lives, Rose. Everybody lives. I need more days like this.
Doctor.
Go on, ask me anything. I'm on fire!
I'm an old man now.
But you don't die. You change. You pop right back up with a new face.
No, not forever. I can change 12 times, 13 versions of me. 13 silly doctors.
Okay, so you're number 11, so...
Ha, are we forgetting Captain Grumpy? Huh? I didn't call myself the Doctor during the Time War, but it was still a regeneration.
Okay, so you're number 12.
Well, number 10 once regenerated and kept the same face. I had vanity issues at the time. 12 regenerations, Clara. I can't ever do it again. This is where I end up.
The Time of the Doctor is the type of story that I believe is basically salvaged by its final act. Honestly, the rest of the story, I really don't care for it. It kind of feels like Stephen Moffat remembered that he had 50 unresolved plot threads from his run and just decided to conclude all of them at the same time. And in the same story, which sees the end of the 11th incarnation of the Doctor, who we also discover here is actually the final 13th incarnation, thanks to the War Doctor and the Meta-Crisis Doctor affecting the numbering. At the time, it felt a bit self-indulgent, with Moffat personally wanting to be the writer who resolved a piece of the show's lore that the fans had been speculating about for decades. However, in retrospect, it kind of makes sense, as this special is ultimately about bringing Gallifrey back, to an extent. And if anyone was going to be able to help the Doctor overcome the regeneration limit, it would be his own people, who are revealed to be in hiding behind the cracks in the skin of the universe and are waiting for the Doctor to answer the question, Doctor Who, to know if it's safe for them to come out. But with the Daleks and the rest of the universe anticipating their arrival, ready to start the Time War 2, Time Harder, the Doctor puts himself between the rest of the universe and the town of Christmas, where the crack is located. The Doctor spends centuries defending the town until he starts approaching the end of his life. Aged and looking a bit like William Hartnell, the Doctor runs out of tricks, and he goes to the top of the clock tower to surrender to the Daleks.
You've been trying to kill me for centuries, and here I am, dying of old age. If you want something done, do it yourself.
Thanks to some convincing from Clara, the Time Lords open the crack in the sky over the town of Christmas and gift the Doctor a new regeneration cycle. And the look on the Doctor's face when he swallows the energy, it's priceless. Due to this breaking some serious Time Lord science, this regeneration is gonna be volatile, so the 11th Doctor uses this energy to blast away the Daleks as the clock literally strikes 12.
You think you can stop me now, Daleks? If you want my life, come and get it! Live from Gallifrey, boys!
Now, you've not seen the title and the ranking come up on screen yet, because this isn't actually the moment I'm choosing. No, but the lead-in is necessary. See, due to this being the 13th regeneration, possibly the first one in existence, the show has already stretched credibility somewhat, which makes it an incredibly realistic pill for the audience to swallow when Matt Smith, still young and back to normal, appears to Clara once more in his TARDIS. It's a wonderful narrative sleight of hand.
You didn't even change your face.
Started. I can't stop it now, this is just the reset. Whole new regeneration cycle, ooh.
As is Clara's arrival to the TARDIS, where she finds the TARDIS phone having come loose somehow from the door. After putting it back, she walks inside, and walking up the stairs isn't the new Doctor, but it's her Doctor. God, literally over 8 million people on Christmas Day 2013 were expecting it to be Peter Capaldi walking up those stairs, oh boy. But yeah, this allows the younger, normal 11th Doctor to get the last word, which results in one of the most wonderful monologues I think I've ever heard.
It all just disappears, doesn't it? Everything you are, gone in a moment, like breath on a mirror. Any moment now, he's a-coming.
Who's coming?
The Doctor.
You are the Doctor.
Yep. And I always will be. But times change. And so must I.
I like to think that every end of a Doctor's era, at least in the revival, presents the mission statement from the showrunner and the Doctor. With 10, it was the warrior reluctantly moving forward, and with 11, it's reflecting on where he started, falling out of the sky into Amelia Pond's garden. He even sees young Amelia running around the TARDIS as she was the first person he saw a lifetime ago. The 11th Doctor has had an incredible journey, and even he's starting to reflect and acknowledge that in his final moments, as well as offering some pretty genuinely profound life advice.
We all change. When you think about it, we're all different people, all through our lives. And that's okay, that's good, you've got to keep moving, so long as you remember all the people that you used to be. I will not forget one line of this. Not one day. I swear. I will always remember when the Doctor was me.
When he talks about being a different person all through your life, that makes so much sense, because people, like even humans with a normal human lifespan, you're always growing and changing and adapting and evolving. You're always changing as a person. And that even happens literally. What is it, like every 5 years, every single cell in your body has been replaced by a new one? You have literally become an entirely new person every 4 or 5 years. My only critique of this scene is that it seems to do Clara a disservice. She seems to get sidelined during her Doctor's regeneration, as the Doctor pays more attention to an imaginary Karen Gillan, though maybe he's so enraptured with her because both actors were wearing wigs for this scene. No wonder Clara gets so upset and paranoid when Peter Capaldi sneezes himself into existence and she doesn't recognise the Doctor anymore. And wait, who's ringing her phone?
Hello? Hello?
It's me.
Yes, it's you. Who's this?
It's me, Clara. The Doctor.
What do you mean, the Doctor?
I'm phoning you from Trenzalore. From before I changed.
In possibly the most subtle but genius setup ever, it turns out the phone was left outside of the TARDIS because it had been used. Stephen Moffat goes timey-wimey with the 11th Doctor one more time as he rings Clara to reassure her and the audience, to let her know that no matter how scared she is right now, his successor will be just as scared that Clara will reject him. It's a wonderful meta commentary to the audience who might be scared about such a drastic change to their hero. But but it also gives Clara a proper goodbye. This whole regeneration arc, shall we say, it's wonderful from top to bottom. From the epic audacity of its imagery, its narrative misdirection and sleight of hand, Matt Smith's performance, and the journey of Clara and the audience being considered across 2 stories with 2 doctors. It's incredible stuff. I actually think this is the best regeneration of the revived series. So what's the actual scene or moment I'm putting on this list? Let's say the 11th hour of the 11th Doctor's life. Is that cheesy? Yes. Is that me breaking the rules of this list? Also yes. But
Never, ever tell me the rules!
The day's coming when I'll look into that man's eyes, and he won't have the faintest idea who I am. And I think it's going to kill me.
River Song is one of the most interesting but also one of the most divisive characters of the revived series of Doctor Who. Played by Alex Kingston, we learn that she is the daughter of companions Amy Pond and Rory Williams, conceived in the Time Vortex, meaning she has some regenerative powers. She's kidnapped as a baby to be trained as an assassin by the Silence to kill the Doctor, but she winds up falling in love with him, and the two even end up getting married and spending decades with each other across time and space. She becomes an archaeologist and messages the Doctor to help her explore the biggest library in the universe, where everyone inside suddenly goes missing, and River Song dies to help bring everyone back who was saved in the library's main computer. Now, here's the rub. That last encounter, the one where she dies, was actually the first time the audience and the Doctor met River Song.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
It's such a fascinating idea for a character. As for how River Song became divisive, it was mainly her personality, where she was basically a distillation of every fetish that Stephen Moffat ever had, which Alex Kingston, to her credit, absolutely leaned into for her performance. However, the story that endeared me the most to River Song was her first one, where she's still a bit cocky and a bit sure of herself, but she seems to have mellowed significantly with age, at least in retrospect, looking back, knowing the whole River Song story. And she's also on the back foot for a change, because she's met the 10th Doctor at a time before he even knows her, which breaks her heart.
Doctor, please tell me you know who I am.
Who are you?
I still attest that this introductory appearance of Alex Kingston is her best performance as this character. Blimey, did River Song peak early, especially when you've got the Doctor wanting to use himself to help the data download despite it surely killing him, so River Song knocks him out, cuffs him to a railing, and sacrifices herself instead.
This is not a joke. Stop this now. This is gonna kill you! I'd have a chance. You don't have any.
You wouldn't have a chance, and neither do I. I'm timing it for the end of the countdown. There'll be a blip in the command flow. That way it should improve our chances of a clean download.
River, please, no.
Funny thing is, this means you've always known how I was going to die. All the time we've been together, you knew I was coming here. The last time I saw you, the real you, the future you, you turned up on my doorstep with a new haircut and a suit. You took me to Darillium to see the Singing Towers. What a night that was. The towers sang, and you cried.
Auto-destruct.
You wouldn't tell me why, but I suppose you knew it was time. My time. Time to come to the library. You even gave me your screwdriver. That should have been a clue. There's nothing you can do.
You can let me do this!
If you die here, it'll mean I've never met you.
Time can be rewritten.
Not those times. Not one line. Don't you dare.
The two best things about this scene: one, the music, the greatest story never told by Murray Gold, its perfection, and two, River Song, in her final moments, uses her precious last few seconds with her husband to comfort him, to let him know that everything will be okay and he'll see her again, which, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I find that so unbelievably touching. The Doctor is just looking at her so confused and not knowing who she is, but still understanding in some way the gravity of this situation, and she's holding back the tears, knowing what her place in the timeline is and that she can't give it away, and knowing that her time is about to end, but the Doctor has so much to look forward to, and her happiness for him on behalf of him gets her through her final moments.
It's okay. It's okay. It's not over for you. You'll see me again. You've got all of that to come. You and me. Time and space. You watch us run.
River, you know my name.
Auto-destruct in...
You whispered my name in my ear.
9, 8, 7...
There's only one reason I would ever tell anyone my name.
5...
There's only one time I could.
Shh, now.
3...
Spoilers.
2... 1...
River Song may have had a rocky history as a companion, but I do love what she represents in the pantheon of Doctor Who companions, and her closing moments with the 10th Doctor are some of the most touching and timey-wimey things in the show's history. Literally no other TV show could tell this story, and I also think that no duo of actors could run with the material as much as this.
Something old. Something new. Something borrowed. Something blue.
It's always hard to try and do something new with the companions of Doctor Who, especially when the revival seems wholly committed to just depicting humans from contemporary Earth, and also Nardole, but we work with what we're given. Well, after Rose, Martha and Donna, we meet Amy Pond, first as a child where she meets the 11th Doctor, who then disappears from her life for 12 years before coming back on the night before her wedding to Rory Williams. After an adrenaline-fueled kiss at the end of Flesh and Stone, the Doctor decides to bring Rory on board, and while he dies, then comes back to life, it's a long story. Amy and Rory finally get married and travel with the Doctor together, the first married couple, well, the first couple generally, on board the TARDIS, unless you count Nyssa and Tegan. While most of their dynamic for the first half of Series 6 can be summarised as how many times can we kill off Rory, it's in the second half where we really start exploring how marriage works in the fourth dimension, which went beyond them just having to share a bunk bed. This concept was paid off in one of the best episodes of the show, The Girl Who Waited from Series 6 by Tom McRae, which has the 11th Doctor, Amy and Rory land on the planet Apalapachia during a quarantine. There's a disease out there that's fatal to those with two hearts, like the Doctor. Amy gets separated from the group and winds up in the wrong time stream. The Doctor and Rory go to retrieve her, only to discover that they're 36 years too late, and Amy has been surviving all of this time on her own, fighting off the robot staff who are trying to kill her with kindness, and resenting the Doctor for abandoning her, a particularly sore spot considering the same thing happened to her as a child. This even creates a rift between the Doctor and Rory, with the latter proclaiming that he is done with time and space.
This is your fault.
I'm so sorry, but Rory...
No, this is your fault! You should look in a history book once in a while, see if there's an outbreak of plague or not.
That is not how I travel.
Then I do not want to travel with you!
Due to some science, they discover the younger Amy's time stream, and after some convincing, the older Amy decides to help rescue her, under the condition that she is not erased. The Doctor promises to make it work, and the rescue is a success, and the older Amy helps Rory get the younger Amy into the TARDIS. The Doctor at the doorway locks eyes with the Amy that he let down, and then shuts the door on her. He lied. He had no intention of saving her. He used her as a means to an end to get the younger Amy back, and while the older Amy is slamming on the TARDIS door begging to be let in, the Doctor, in the ultimate, slimy pawning off of responsibility, tries to get Rory to make the choice.
When we save our Amy, this future won't have happened.
But she happened, she's there!
I trusted you!
No, she's not real.
She is.
Let her in.
Look, we take this Amy, we leave ours. There can only be one Amy in the TARDIS. Which one do you want? It's your choice.
This isn't fair. You're turning me into you.
And the older Amy places her hands on the glass window of the TARDIS, and while Rory contemplates letting her in, Amy talks him down and takes the decision out of his hands after remembering how much she was loved by Rory.
I'm sorry, I can't do this.
If you love me, don't let me in. Open that door, I will. I'll come in. I don't want to die. I won't bow out bravely. I'll be kicking, screaming, fighting. To the end.
Amy, I love you.
I love you too. Don't let me in. Tell Amy. You're Amy. I'm giving her the days. The days with you. Days to come.
The music, some of the best performances in the history of the show, the shot composition from Nick Hurren, the split screen, it's just so beautiful, yet so sad and heart-wrenching as Rory locks her out, and Amy faces the handbots down and lets them end her struggle, as Rory regretfully listens, and the Doctor does his best to ignore her. Their younger Amy is safe, but never saw the incident happen. I wish this story had some lasting consequences in future episodes, like did this shake Rory's trust in the Doctor? Did Amy ever find out what happened? But in the context of just this story, of just this episode, it's an exploration of love across time, about loss, about rejection and atonement. The Girl Who Waited is a masterpiece and justified the conceit of a married couple in the TARDIS all on its own.
I'll leave you two alone.
You alright? How are you feeling?
Where is she?
I thought I'd brighten things up to thank you for saving me last night.
Ah.
I thought you might like, possibly to perhaps paint them or something. Might be a thought.
Yes, well, they're not my favorite flower.
You don't like sunflowers?
No, it's not that I don't like them. I find them complex. Always somewhere between living and dying. Half human as they turn to the sun. A little disgusting.
So we're in the top 5, and I acknowledge that the past few entries have just been cry fests, and that's not going to change anytime soon, because we're talking about Vincent and the Doctor, the Series 5 story from Richard Curtis, where the 11th Doctor and Amy spot a monster in an old Van Gogh painting, and decide to travel to 1890s France to discover what's happening. We learn that the creature in the painting is a Crephaeus, and it's wild and scared as it's been separated from the rest of its group, and it's blind. It's also a creature that only Vincent can see. While the Doctor is trying to discover a way to deal with the Crephaeus, we've got Vincent, who is tormented by mental health troubles like manic depression, and has been visited by numerous other Doctors, a fact that this Doctor is well aware of, as he knows that in just a few months' time, Vincent van Gogh will commit suicide.
Come on. Come out, come on, let's go outside.
Get out! What are you doing here? What are you doing here?
Very well, I'll leave. I'll leave you.
The Doctor, Amy and Vincent accidentally kill the frightened Crephaeus, and with the day saved, in quotes, the three enjoy the night sky, allowing them and the audience to see the world as Vincent saw it, and instead of saying their goodbyes, the Doctor and Amy decide to give Vincent a special gift. You see, Vincent van Gogh never actually sold anything in his life. He was famously unsuccessful during his career. He was hounded and harassed by the locals, and he died in poverty. The Doctor and Amy decided to let Vincent see what his legacy actually was by taking him to the Musée d'Orsay in 2010 to see his works on display, admired and adored by the public, and also we meet Dr. Black, an expert at the museum played by an uncredited but brilliant Bill Nighy, who gives his unfiltered praise of Van Gogh's work, not realising that the legendary artist himself is stood just a few feet away, listening to everything.
To me, Van Gogh is the finest painter of them all. Certainly the most popular, great painter of all time. The most beloved. His command of colour, the most magnificent. He transformed the pain of his tormented life into ecstatic beauty. Pain is easy to portray, but to use your passion and pain to portray the ecstasy and joy and magnificence of our world, no one had ever done it before. Perhaps no one ever will again. To my mind, that strange, wild man who roamed the fields of Provence was not only the world's greatest artist, but also one of the greatest men who ever lived.
It's a wonderful scene, with Bill Nighy making the speech compelling to listen to. Tony Curran's performance as Vincent just takes your heart out and stamps on it. Johnny Campbell's direction has the main cast on a revolving platform, causing the room to spin around Vincent as he starts to get overwhelmed by this experience. But Curran's performance escalates as the scene goes on. He seems to take a minute or two to actually comprehend and believe what the Doctor is showing him, and it's not until Dr. Black verbalizes his legacy does it really hit home. With tears of joy and a kiss goodbye, Vincent leaves Dr. Black, who's befuddled by who he might have just met. Now, it's easy for this moment to be seen as self-indulgent, and I agree with that criticism to an extent, but there's two factors that make it work for me. One, this takes place in Series 5, the fairy tale season. I don't think you could get away with this scene in any other series of the revival. Tonally and thematically, it is well placed in the same series as The Beast Below, Amy's Choice and The Big Bang, 100%. I even think that because of that, the scene gets away with the licensed music, Chances by Athlete, primarily because it's the instrumental version for the majority of the time. And point number two, this isn't the capper of the episode. The Doctor and Amy take Vincent back home, and he appears to have a new lease on life. And while Amy is eager to go back to the Musée d'Orsay and watch the new life of Vincent on the walls, we learn that he still committed suicide just a few months later, because Vincent's inner demons were too much for him. And the Doctor knew the whole time that giving him a glimpse into the future wouldn't change that. Because as the Doctor explains,
the way I see it, every life is a pile of good things and bad things. Hey, the good things don't always soften the bad things, but vice versa, the bad things don't necessarily spoil the good things or make them unimportant. And we definitely added to his pile of good things.
Because we only get one life. Find joy however you can, bring joy to others even if it breaks the rules somewhat. Add to your pile of good things, add to other people's pile of good things, in spite of how large the pile of bad things are. Replace the invisible monsters in your artwork with a loving tribute for Amy, the ultimate Ginge.
There was this light. I can't remember anything else.
Rose Tyler. I was going to take you to so many places. Barcelona, not the city Barcelona, the planet Barcelona. You'd love it. Fantastic place. They've got dogs with no noses. Imagine how many times a day you end up telling that joke, and it's still funny.
Then why can't we go?
Maybe you will, and maybe I will, but not like this.
Now, I said a few rankings ago that I believe the 11th Doctor's regeneration at the end of The Time of the Doctor is the best regeneration of the revived series, and I do stand by that. But firstly, if this ranking discrepancy upsets you, then you might have forgotten what the spirit of this list is. And secondly, I still rank this one above it in this context, because it's one thing to have a Doctor regenerate, but it's another to introduce the concept of regeneration to a whole new generation of people, because a whole new audience of kids and families grew to love the 9th Doctor as not just their first Doctor, but in this point it was just their Doctor. Over the course of 13 episodes, they saw this wounded and broken Doctor ultimately find his humanity again thanks to Rose Tyler. They got to see him save the world, protect Platform 1, fanboy over Charles Dickens, blow up Downing Street, turn his gun away from Rose and the Dalek, inspire Catholica, get in the church, ensure that everybody lived, and even gave Margaret Slitheen a second chance. It's been one hell of a journey, and for millions of people, Eccleston is not just the Doctor, he's currently their only Doctor. And now some young Scottish lad is going to take over? What the hell? This doesn't really happen in other franchises, and while the regeneration concept has ensured Doctor Who's longevity, I can't think of another franchise where the metamorphosis happens on screen. Like, James Bond has been played by many different actors, but he doesn't change from one Bond to another in front of the audience's eyes. And as for regenerations, every Doctor Who fan has their first. Getting this regeneration wrong could have been disastrous for the revival. So how did we get here? Well, the 9th Doctor sends Rose Tyler back home to save her from the Dalek invasion in the year 200,100 on the Bad Wolf Station. However, Rose, with the help of her mum Jackie and boyfriend Mickey, managed to open up the heart of the TARDIS, causing Rose to look into the time vortex and uses that energy to find the Doctor again, just as he's about to be exterminated by the Dalek army. Rose uses this power, the power of the Bad Wolf, to wipe them out of existence, but the energy is killing her. So,
I think you need a doctor.
The Doctor takes the energy from her and sends it back into the TARDIS as he lets go of the Time War and the decision he was unable to make again. And you can just see his posture change as he blows that energy away. He's letting go of the Time War and the decision he was unable to make again. The Doctor knows what will happen to him, but he doesn't hesitate. Rose has saved him in ways I don't even think that she's aware of, and now the Doctor can sacrifice himself for her. He brings Rose back into the TARDIS and she regains consciousness, having no knowledge of what she's just done. Now, this scene is so carefully and tastefully handled because the Doctor realises he's about to die due to the time vortex energy that he's absorbed, and he only has a short amount of time to explain to Rose the concept of regeneration.
Every cell in my body's dying.
Can't you do something?
Yeah, I'm doing it now. Time Lords have this little trick. It's sort of a way of cheating death. Except it means I'm gonna change. And I'm not gonna see you again. Not like this. Not with this daft old face.
Honestly, it's kind of amazing. This whole scene is only about 2.5 minutes long, yet it does exactly what it needs to, though that brevity is due to necessity, as this was a last-minute filming job, as the show didn't get renewed for a second series until about 3 months before the broadcast of this episode. David Tennant and Billie Piper did not share the set together until the Children in Need prologue, and David Tennant's first few moments at the end of this episode were recorded 2 days before World War III hit the airwaves. waves, and he was using a piece of sticky tape as an eyeline for Billie Piper. But anyway, Eccleston's performance is almost fatherly, as he's joking around trying to make this imminent change easy for Rose, and by proxy the audience. And the most important part, and the reason this regeneration ranks so high, is that in the Ninth Doctor's final few frames on screen, he's smiling. From ear to ear, he goes out with a smile. Yes, people are going to be upset watching this, but the Doctor is going to change, and he's okay with it. He acknowledges Rose and his own triumphs, and then the regeneration metaphor is sealed with the fiery special effects. Most regenerations have been a crossfade or a cheesy 80s filter, but no, this is an explosion. This is the roar of a new Doctor. The concept of regeneration explained and executed in one of the show's finest moments, all in less than 3 minutes. With the show's second series greenlit and a new Doctor on board, Doctor Who's longevity in the 21st century was assured. Also, the 10th Doctor is born with his hair already gelled. That's a bit strange.
Oh, that's right. Barcelona.
It's not like I'm an innocent. I've taken lives. I got worse, I got clever. Manipulated people into taking their own. Sometimes I think a Time Lord lives too long.
And we go from the beginning of the 10th Doctor's era to the end, or at least near the end. Now, the end of time... It's a really flawed story. It's tonally all over the map, its stakes demand a quick fix, its plot and setting move all over the place, and it's filled to the brim with extraneous characters. However, every scene with the 10th Doctor and Wilf is perfect. See, the 10th Doctor is approaching his death, and he's been told that he will knock 4 times, and that will be his fate. He's spent a long time running and putting off his fate, but is sent to Earth by the Ood as the Master has been resurrected. With the banging of 4 drums, the heartbeat of a Time Lord still in his head, the Doctor and the audience assume that that is how the 10th Doctor will end. So when the Master manages to replace all of humankind's DNA with his own to create a master race, the Doctor has to stop him, but the Time Lords in the final days of the Time War plan to use their psychic link with the Master, the drums in his head, along with a white point star to escape the war and have the Time Lords return in a transcendent state when they end time itself. And oh my god, they really did get Timothy Dalton to play Rassilon, didn't they?
I will not die!
The Doctor, having crashed through the roof of the Master's base and armed with Wilfrid's revolver, finds himself between Rassilon and the Master, forced to choose who to kill. The Time Lords have also brought back Gallifrey, and in the chaos of its arrival in orbit, Wilfrid arrives to help the Doctor.
I am not leaving that man on his own, not today! Land it!
Only to see a man trapped inside an isolated control room, so Wilfrid lets him out and traps himself inside, so he can only watch as the Doctor agonises over the choice. The Doctor then spots a woman stood behind Rassilon, the woman who has been guiding Wilf behind the scenes this whole time. Her presence seems to shake the Doctor to his core. He recognises her, and he also notices her glances behind him, and realises he can shoot the white point star, sending the Time Lords back. As Rassilon is about to kill the Doctor, the Master, with the Rhythm of 4, holds the Time Lords back and is seemingly killed with them. Gallifrey leaves the sky, the Time Lords are gone, and the Doctor is still here.
I'm still alive.
Okay, go on then. Yeah, good-o.
The isolated chamber that Wilf is in is about to flood with radiation. One touch of the controls and it will set it all off. Wilf, being the selfless guy he is, tells the Doctor to leave him, and it initially seems that the Doctor might do just that.
Just leave me.
Okay, right then, I will. Because you had to go in there, didn't you? You had to go and get stuck, oh yes. Because that's who you are, Wilfred. You were always this. Waiting for me all this time.
Oh, really? Just leave me. I'm an old man, Doctor. I've had my time.
Well, exactly. Look at you. Not remotely important. But me? I could do so much more. So much more! But this is what I get. My reward. But it's not fair!
Now, people have criticised this scene, arguing that the Doctor here is just being really petty and selfish. And you know what? I agree. I mean, we've already established that the 10th Doctor has one hell of an ego. But this scene still really works for me, because at this point the Doctor thinks he's gonna die. It's not just a case of regenerating, he thinks that he'll die here and now. But secondly, just look at A. Roslин's sensitive direction. As soon as the Doctor picks himself up off the floor and the camera focus changes to Wilf, look who is also in the glass chamber. The Doctor's reflection. He's already in there. Like from moment one. The second he heard that knocking, he knew it was going to happen. After the events of the Waters of Mars, the Doctor has kind of had the idea of him trying to overcorrect forced out of him. Him crying, shouting, and raging at the dying of the light. It's just the venting, the Shakespearean theatrics of an egotist with two good hearts deep down, brought down to earth to save a good man. He calls Wilf not remotely important, but you can tell he doesn't mean it. I think just saying that actually hurts the Doctor. David Tennant's voice cracking when he's talking to Wilf, that defeated look to the camera followed by that sigh, it's the performance of his life, and the 10th Doctor, battered, bruised, crushed, and seemingly in the final minute of his life, terrified of the end and afraid to let go, he does it anyway.
Lived too long.
No. No, please don't. No, don't! Please don't! Please!
Wilfred, it's my honor. Better be quick. 3, 2, 1.
The only thing that could have made this scene better is if he regenerated right there and then in that chamber. Instead, the 10th Doctor survives, but holds off his regeneration for a victory tour. It's emotionally satisfying in the context of it being the end of the Russell T Davies era, well, the first Russell T Davies era, but I think his final words as he regenerates in the TARDIS alone do undercut the Doctor's arc somewhat, and it's a far cry from the beaming smile of the 9th Doctor during his final moments. Between the 4 knocks and that regeneration, nearly 20 minutes have passed for the audience. Sometimes less is more, but that's what I love about this scene on its own. It's not the Time Lords, the Master, or the Daleks that bring down the 10th Doctor. It's him laying down his life for an old man who was brave enough to be there with him to the end. Let's also not underestimate how incredible Bernard Cribbins is here as well. If this Doctor was going to give his life for anyone, it had to be Wilfred Mott.
What was it you said? Final few hours of planet Earth? He doesn't get rid of us that easily.
So So this top 50 was put into motion before Doctor Who Flux even had a broadcast date, let alone even started, meaning that the 13th season of the show's revival wasn't able to get proper representation in the top 50. So here we are, with a special installment of this countdown. I hope you've been enjoying it so far, and if not, I'm sorry that you're 96% of the way through. There are no refunds. Anyway, what we'll be doing is picking one moment from each of the 6 episodes and then considering whether or not any of them could have made a dent in the current top 50. Starting with...
What's the flux?
A hurricane. Ripping through the structure of this universe. Disrupting every particle. The falling of the structure of the universe. A cataclysm of unknown proportions or patterns. We don't know for sure.
And when is this flux due to happen?
It's already begun.
Looking back, the Halloween Apocalypse was a really strong opening chapter. It's got a great pace to it, great performances. Carvanista is one of the MVPs of this whole series, phenomenal direction and imagery, but it now has this niggling sensation in the back of your mind when watching it, knowing that a lot of these plot threads either will not pay off or get addressed.
I don't know you.
Yet I know you. I remember every battle, which gives me the advantage.
That never really delivered on its promise, did it? But still, it was a good episode to signify its intent to the viewer, that Doctor Who is committed to a serialised story, by even taking the closing moments of episode 1 of Broadchurch by showcasing a montage of the main cast.
How are the doctors are gonna get out of this one?
Even on a rewatch, this was an impactful cliffhanger that appears to be the end of the universe. Segun Akinola's music is harrowing, the Doctor's prior attempts to stop the flux have her completely on the back foot, and that closing shot feels like something from the classic series. Just great stuff. Next up.
I find myself excited.
You've heard me say this time and time again, but it seems that Chibnall completely nails classic series villains, and with Doctor Who Flux, it was time to reintroduce the Sontarans, who haven't had a proper featured appearance in over 13 years. The end result was War of the Sontarans, which immediately ranks up there as one of the best Sontaran stories, by placing them in the Crimean War, having rewritten history to take the place of Russian forces. Couple that with Jodie Whittaker consistently excelling on one-on-one confrontations with villains, and, well, you've got all of the hallmarks of an iconic scene.
Let's be having you. Take your hat off, mate! On second thoughts, put it back on!
You have information regarding the treacherous vermin known as the Doctor.
You're talking to her.
What?
This is so awesome, with the Doctor using her screwdriver to signal a parley to the Sontaran troops, Jonathan Watson as an assortment of incredible Sontarans in this series, the brilliant direction from Jamie Magnus Stone, and even a terrific callback to the Sontaran appearance that started it all.
This planet has defied us ever since the great Commander Lynx first staked his claim on the ground of its
feeble soil. We now assert that claim.
The Doctor winds up getting betrayed by General Logan and escorted off the battlefield, leading to a massacre of British troops. This set piece is astonishing, and something I don't think has ever been depicted in Doctor Who before proper, a full-scale battle between two armies. I even love how we get a standard villain confrontation scene like this, because it serves as a great contrast between the Sontarans and the Ravagers, a villain that the Doctor can't just negotiate her way around, or find an easily exploitable weakness. It's such a thoughtfully structured episode. This sequence, though, really does have it all, from great performances, great dialogue, and also demonstrating why the Sontarans are a pretty tough villain to depict on screen, because they need to be a credible threat and intimidating, but they're also very silly potato men, and we love them for it.
And also, I wanted to ride a horse.
What do you want?
To reign in hell.
If you've seen my in-depth review of Once Upon Time, then you'll likely already know where this is going. While the conceit of dedicating an episode to the Doctor trying to time warp her way out of last week's cliffhanger is really novel, it didn't really do much to advance the story itself, or give the audience much more to these characters, and it just feels really oddly assembled. We don't even get a proper scene with Jo Martin's fugitive Doctor, though that could have been due to filming bubbles and restrictions. Speaking of restrictions though, I think it's safe to view Doctor Who Flux as a production affected by the COVID pandemic, and not just in its filming restrictions, but in the subtext as well, which is exemplified through, in my opinion, the casting MVP of Doctor Who Flux, Thadia Graham as Belle.
Love is not a mission. Love is an emotion. Emotions are not missions.
And that's why you're dead on the floor, and I put you there. Love is the only mission. Idiot.
We've got Belle travelling across a decimated universe, trying to find her life partner Vinda, exploring forests, encountering threats, stealing spaceships as she bears witness to worlds fracturing and falling apart around her. I would genuinely watch a whole 6-episode series just on Belle's adventures during this time. The adventures of Belle and Baby Belle. But I think you folks already know which scene I'm putting on this list, the campfire scene, where Belle and her baby Tigme are watching Vinda's last recorded message again.
I'm sorry. I was doing the right thing. I'm only permitted one message. I hope it gets to you. I love you.
I love you too. Don't we, Tigme? You know, we'll break it if we watch it too many more times. Wonder if he looks different.
God, that line hits harder every time I watch it, though this line will never sound quite right.
Me and you're beautiful as your unborn child.
That probably needed a quick rewrite, or a tweak.
Are they really ringing the doorbell?
Now we move on to Village of the Angels, and honestly I felt a bit spoilt for choice here, as almost everything revolving around the Weeping Angels themselves was terrific. Definitely the best application of them since the time of Angels. There's the terrific scene of the Angel taunting Jericho through the TV screen, the Angel forming through the crumpled paper before being set on fire, everything in the tunnels, you get what I mean. But if I had to choose one moment, and I do, it has to be that incredible cliffhanger with Yaz, Dan and Jericho separated from the Doctor, Claire held hostage, and the Doctor being recalled to Division, who she discovered earlier would recruit Weeping Angels to do their dirty work. And to hit the point home, the Angels literally transformed the Doctor into an angel. Oh yeah, and the credit music has been changed as well to remove the bass line, the Doctor's heartbeat. Such a great detail. This shot is incredible. The wings bursting out of the Doctor's back before being locked into place, doing the now iconic weeping pose, the music. This is an incredible raising of the stakes, and we've never seen anything like this before, as Doctor Who Flux ends its second act and gives us our all is lost moment.
The all is lost moment!
Who sent you? Why are you following us?
Answer the question, are you told?
Now, this is where it gets a bit tricky, because for both Survivors of the Flux and the Vanquishers, the plot threads are moving so quickly and we're dipping out of subplots so much that not much is really able to settle and leave much of an impression, and because the story is moving, not much is resonating. Honestly, these scenes go by so quickly and are so disconnected that it's hard to find a scene or a moment to justify putting on this list. But we work with what we're given, so reluctantly and with a bunch of caveats, I'm going to include this scene where the Grand Serpent reveals himself to Robert Bathurst's character. Now, you could remove this subplot and the Grand Serpent from Doctor Who Flux entirely and not lose a single thing, but I do love how this scene is still put together. We get a nice Brigadier cameo in the corridor.
That's our new corporal. Brought him in after we missed the whole thing at the post office tower.
And then we've got the Grand Serpent being exposed and using his massive snake to choke this guy. Oh god, this video is going to get demonetized now, isn't it?
How you expect to protect this pitiful race, I do not know.
What do you mean?
To be called Grand Serpent.
It's shot really well. I love the production design of this unit headquarters, even though we don't really see all of it on screen. Look at this Remembrance of the Daleks callback on the desk. It's so cool. Yeah, good scene. And for the Vanquishers, you know what, let's just go for the spectacle. Let's give credit to Double Negative, the special effects house for the series, who have really outdone themselves this year. I know it's a cliche at this point, but Doctor Who really has never looked better, and while we can thank some incredible directors and cinematographers for that feat, we also can't underestimate the technical horsepower as well, exemplified from the visual splendour of the sequence where the final Flux event rips through the Daleks, the Sontarans and the Cybermen.
Cyberfleet trapped in the pull of the Flux. What is the meaning of this?
The meaning is victory for Sontar! Sontar!
The music on this scene also has me on the edge of my seat, ready to pre-order a Series 13 soundtrack when it becomes available, and yeah, it just looks and sounds terrific. That sounds a bit like an anticlimactic end to this portion of the countdown, but with the ending of Flux, that's kind of on brand. But as for whether or not anything here could have cracked the top 50 proper, well, remember, the top 50 isn't meant to be taken wholly literally, or as an actual mathematical approach to the revival of Doctor Who, and as more of a celebration of the show itself. If you pay attention to some of the numbering, that should be apparent. But genuinely, because I'm a sentimental git, maybe the scene from Once Upon a Time could have squeaked in there, and if Doctor Who Flux had broadcast a few months earlier, I can definitely see myself putting the scenes from War of the Sontarans and Village of the Angels somewhere in there as well, even if it was just the honourable mentions. But yeah, there was some terrific stuff in Doctor Who Flux, and I look forward to seeing what the specials in 2022 deliver.
Long ago, he was big and strong, in his eyes a flaming glow. Rasputin, Russia's greatest love machine. It was a shame how we carry on.
In 2022, we were treated to a trilogy of special Doctor Who episodes to mark the BBC's centenary and the end of the Jodie Whittaker era. However, unlike Flux, I decided that I couldn't really justify making entries on this list for all of those specials, mainly because while Eve of the Daleks wasn't bad, there really was not a moment that stood out to me there, and while I didn't like Legend of the Sea Devils, rationality prevailed and I was not going to have the Sea Devil jump in the top 50 Doctor Who moments. With the Power of the Doctor, however, that was a different story. Yes, its first act is a mess, and the relationship between 13 and Yaz and Dan's departure felt half-baked. In the end, I was spoilt for choice for moments that could make my top 50. The classic Doctors, now embodied as the Guardians of the Edge, 5 and Tegan and 7 and Ace returning, even the 13th Doctor's final line results in a terrific regeneration scene. But I'm going to devolve into a fanboy now. I'm going to choose the scene that is intercut with the regeneration, and that's the Doctor's friendship group, set up by Graham and attended by Yaz, Dan and even classic companions like Jo Grant, Melanie Bush and Ian Chesterton, all brought together and sharing common ground over this one out-of-this-world character of fluid gender.
I've only been back a month, and I gotta say, I'm glad I'm not on the verge of being exterminated anymore. But I do miss her.
Sorry. Did you say... her?
How many doctors are there?
I think we're going to be here quite some time.
Now, you could argue that it is just cameos and a story that's already full of callbacks. However, I think the whole story does a great job at embodying the fandom experience of being a Doctor Who fan, that these people have a shared experience and a shared love through watching this mad Time Lord in a box. All the while, the 13th Doctor is getting ready to regenerate and take the next step of her adventure, as Yaz, who had to say goodbye to her Doctor, is comforted at the idea that she wasn't the first and that she's not alone in what has developed into a community. Genuinely a wonderful ending to a muddled but oddly powerful special and end of this era.
Right then. Doctor whoever I'm about to be. Tag. You're it.
Some things are fixed, some things are in flux. Pompeii is fixed. For all we know, this is the night Agatha Christie loses her life and history gets changed.
You and the entire future of the human race. It ends right now in 1599 if we don't stop it.
The revival of the show introduced a story concept to Doctor Who, a fixed point in time, a historical event that cannot be changed. Now, the classic series obviously did have the Doctor trying to right some wrongs in the timeline and try and keep things on course, but it was in the revival where this concept was actually given a name, and greater importance was placed on it. It makes sense, you know, you kind of want the stakes to be high, even in a historical story, but for a few seasons it was used exclusively in that context, the context of historical events, because, well, you know, it's our history. It's kind of hard to emphasize a fixed point in the present day or in the future because, you know, the audience don't know what will be important or vital because we've not lived through the events. So this is the uphill challenge of a story like The Waters of Mars, where the Doctor finds himself on the Red Planet in the year 2059, where the first human colony is established. On Bowie Base 1, the 10th Doctor meets Adelaide Brooke, the leader of the base, and this is the day that she's meant to activate the nuclear explosion at the heart of the base, killing the crew, and no one knew why. The Doctor discovers that the base is under siege by the Flood, an intelligent virus that infects through the water, and it's killing off the crew and possessing them one by one. If just one drop of water reaches Earth, it's the end of the human race, explaining Brooke's actions. However, her death will inspire her granddaughter to travel the stars and broaden the future of the human race forever, meaning the Doctor cannot save the crew. The Doctor puts on his spacesuit and leaves the base, his helmet still connected to the comms of the crew members, and he hears them dying, one by one, and he can do nothing but walk away. It goes against every instinct in his body. The Doctor turning up across the universe, righting wrongs, saving people, fixing problems, but not today. The base's pilot, Ed, gets infected, and in his final act, blows up the rocket ship, breaching the hull of the base, with Adelaide and crew members Mia and Yuri losing oxygen fast. And this is the last straw for the Doctor. Almost 5 years of TV, around 60 episodes of the Doctor being the last of the Time Lords, he decides here and now what being the last of the Time Lords really means.
Take this scene and fix that ring. Yuri, help me raise the oxygen. Adelaide, don't just sit there.
But you said we die. For the future, for the human race.
Yes, because there are laws. There are laws of time. Once upon a time, there were people in charge of those laws, but they died. They all died. Do you know who that leaves? Me! It's taken me all these years to realise the laws of time are mine, and they will obey me!
With Murray Gold's music blaring, with director Graham Harper giving us as many hero shots as possible, and David Tennant at his most manic, what follows is some of the most astonishing television I've ever watched, as the Doctor returns to Bowie Base 1 to try and save the crew. But with a damaged spacesuit, no way out, no supplies, and the Flood banging on the door and about to awaken their forces, the Doctor improvises a plan, revolving around the base's funny robot, Gadget. The plan: get Gadget to the TARDIS and pick them up. But Adelaide has set the base's self-destruct sequence because she understands that she's meant to die. For the sake of the future of the human race, she has to die. So it's a race against time as the Doctor tries to beat the countdown clock. What's so fantastic about this set piece, aside from the production and the performances, is that it weaponizes its strongest elements and years of storytelling against its audience, because the Doctor here, he's quipping, the music is heroic, the alien threat and the interplanetary stakes are real, but we know that the Doctor should not be doing what he's doing, and with that understanding, the dissonance in the audience becomes way clearer on screen. Tennant's gloating smile as Adelaide begs him to not save them being a particular gut punch. For several years, the Doctor's companions have been his moral compass. They convince him to do what's best, they're there to stop him from going too far, and they save him from his worst impulses. And who's the companion in the waters of Mars, or at least the companion surrogate? It's Adelaide. She's the hero of the story, and the Doctor, the Time Lord victorious, is the villain she's unable to stop. This is the 10th Doctor doing the wrong thing for the right reasons, indulging his better nature the one time he needs to show restraint. And against all of the odds, because the Doctor works best under the most extreme of pressures, he's able to get Gadget to the TARDIS in time so they can make their dramatic escape. The Doctor brings Adelaide, Yuri and Mia back to Earth. Mia runs away, frightened at the nature of the Doctor's TARDIS, with Yuri giving chase. leaving the Doctor and Adelaide alone. Adelaide condemns the Doctor for winning, and just as the Doctor thinks he's gotten away with it, Adelaide decides to take history into her own hands. It's a gut punch of an ending. The Doctor isn't victorious here. He drove someone he deeply admires, someone whose story he cherishes, to a much darker fate. It's such a brave and dark and terrific ending, one of the greatest episodes of the show, and it even inspired its own spin-off multimedia event in 2020. Regardless of what the visual storytelling is telling you, regardless of Murray Gold's music, regardless of Tennant's performance, the Time Lord victorious is wrong, and even the Doctor can't save everyone. Now, before we get to number 1, let's go through some honourable mentions. Basically, in chronological order, these were numbers 60 to 51.
I think you know us so well, Doctor. We're not abandoned. Not while we have each other.
This heavy-handed scene in the series' 3-story Gridlock has the citizens of New York stuck in their cars underground, unable to communicate outside of phone calls and video screens, sharing a rare moment of unity by singing the hymn, Abide With Me. Now, I say it's heavy-handed, but to be honest, after the past 2 years we've had, this emotional set piece took on a whole new meaning on a rewatch. What can I say, I'm a sucker for show tunes. This 2-part Dalek story just stops dead so that Tallulah and the girls at the New York Review can do a dance. Sure, the Doctor is doing a scan on the Dalek mutant during this scene, and also Tallulah's pig-slave boyfriend Laszlo gets caught spying, but really, you're here for the music and the choreography. I got the sense that cinematographer Ernie Vince and director James Strong really relished the change in mood.
You're on my tail! Get off my tail!
How's our hair loss, Mr. Halpin?
Sometimes morality isn't black and white in the Doctor Who universe. For every unambiguously evil threat that needs defeating, there's sometimes the grey areas, like how do you deal with the leader of an organisation that enslaved an entire race against their will? Now, conventional wisdom, the civilised way, says that you imprison them, or deal with them through a legal channel, but what if that's not viable, and what if that doesn't do anything to repair the damage? So what if instead we had Kleinman Halpin being fed a special liquid over the course of years, thinking it's hair loss medicine, only to later realise that he's turning into an ood? Justice can take many forms.
It's weird being with you. I can't tell what's right and what's wrong anymore.
It's better that way.
I'm here. Can't you see me?
What's that noise?
End of the tape. It ran out about 30 seconds ago.
Moffat's spooky formula of changing and altering the soundscape to imply an upcoming scare has served him really well in the past. From typewriters to ticking clocks, it's a great way to set up a horrific jump scare. However, what I love about its implementation in Silence in the Library and The Forest of the Dead is that it is used to set up a scare.
We should go, Doctor!
In a minute. Library.
We should go, Doctor! We should go, Doctor!
Oh, Dave!
but it's also used as a really sad character beat, with Miss Evangelista getting eaten by the Vashta Nerada. She'd already spoken to Donna earlier, so when her consciousness is ghosting in the spacesuit, she confides in Donna again, unaware that her whole team is listening. And Donna, hopeless to do anything to help in Miss Evangelista's final moments.
What I said before about being stupid. Don't tell the others, they'll only laugh.
God, that's sad.
Ice cream. Ice cream. Ice cream.
Thief? Where's my thief?
This is an example of a story that I adore, but I couldn't really find a place for it on the list. 48 years after the show started, after the first Doctor ran away from Gallifrey in a faulty TARDIS, we finally get to hear that TARDIS's side of the story, penned by Neil Gaiman.
Then you stole me. And I stole you.
Culminating in a heart-ripping climax where the TARDIS, possessing the body of a woman named Idris, loses her human form and dies in front of the Doctor, finally getting to say, not goodbye, but hello.
Hello, Doctor. It's so very, very nice to meet you.
Colonel Manson, I want you to tell your men to run away.
Those words, run away. I want you to be famous for those exact words.
Stephen Moffat sure can write his speeches, can't he? When you've got the 11th Doctor's friends held hostage by a society hell-bent on destroying him, the Doctor manages to quickly turn the tables, and when reveling in his victory, he decides to twist the knife just that little bit further into Colonel Manton.
I want people to call you Colonel Runaway. I want children laughing outside your door because they've found the house of Colonel Runaway.
It's too short of a moment for me to put it on this list, but yeah, this subversion of the Doctor's ideals really hits home in the context of Series 6.
And when people come to you and ask if trying to get to meet with the people I love is in any way a good idea,
I want you to tell them your name.
You're the 11th Doctor.
I said he was me. I never said he was the Doctor. He's the one who broke the promise.
At the end of a ho-hum Series 7 finale, we get one of the greatest cliffhangers of all time. For me, I couldn't really put the War Doctor reveal and a segment revolving around him from the Day of the Doctor both on the list, but I did want to draw some attention to this incredible reveal. It really is just down to the casting and that slow turn revealing the on-screen text. One of the best pieces of casting in the history of the show that was so good that it distracted viewers long enough to not realise that the name of the Doctor doesn't actually have an ending.
What I did without choice. In the name of peace and sanity.
Ever microwave the lasagna without pricking the foam on top? Don't be lasagna.
This Journey to the Centre of the Earth pastiche has the 12th Doctor and Clara shrink inside a Dalek casing to try and fix it. Now, I have many issues with this story, but thanks to director Ben Wheatley, it's one of the best looking stories of the revival, with the standout being this really trippy, slow-paced and almost ethereal sequence as our cast go through the Dalek eye stalk. The contortions, the bending of the image, the soundscape, it's awesome.
That was
You've seen nothing yet.
Stop laughing, this is serious.
Well, I can't help it, can I, with you and your big old face?
This is a story I wish could have gotten more exposure in the top 50, but for the requirements it didn't really hit the mark. The best story of Series 8, Flatline, has the Doctor inside the TARDIS as the exterior dimensions start shrinking. It's so funny, and we have Clara carrying the TARDIS around like an accessory, but he gets dropped down a hole right into the path of an oncoming train, so the Doctor has to literally think outside the box to get out of the way by using his hand to walk his tiny blue box across the train tracks. Inspired, I particularly love how heroic the music is whilst this obviously ridiculous set piece plays out. Okay, hear me out. So much of sci-fi media and sci-fi horror has leaned into the horrific reveal. You know, someone turns around and there's a horrible, huge, dripping, spitting, massive creature that's about to eat you. But here, the creature's tiny, cute, but ferocious. It's a great CGI creation, the Pating. That subversion and the gall to commit to a main antagonist like the Pating is great. I love it. And now, without further ado...
Because the real question is, where did I get the cup of tea? Answer, I'm the Doctor. Just accept it.
Now, in 2015, I was going through a phase where Doctor Who just wasn't really working for me. I wasn't a fan of the direction of the show. I would actively feel like a sense of dread whenever Stephen Moffat's name appeared in the opening titles, and Peter Capaldi, one of the best actors to play the Doctor, was saddled with scripts that really underserved him. Now, in retrospect, I still haven't warmed to this period of the show. Obviously, I would word my criticisms better now than I would back then, but I do think that Series 7 to Series 9 is the low point of the revival so far. However, there is still a diamond to be found here, and I think you know which episode I'm talking about.
As you come into this world, something else is also born. You begin your life, and it begins a journey towards you. It moves slowly, but it never stops. Wherever you go, whatever path you take, it will follow. Never faster, never slower, always coming. You will run, it will walk. You will rest, it will not. One day, you will linger in the same place too long. You will sit too still or sleep too deep. And when, too late, you rise to go, you will notice a second shadow next to yours. Your life will then be over.
Let me get this out of the way now. Yes, a lot of this episode is undercut by Hell-Bent. In fact, the Doctor's journey in Heaven Sent makes very little sense due to the revelations in Hell-Bent, thus rendering his emotional journey pretty sour in the end. But for the episode itself, for this nearly hour-long block of television, I have basically zero complaints. Heaven Sent stands as one of the best episodes in the history of Doctor Who, with Stephen Moffat giving us a genuinely clever script, not pretending to be clever, being genuinely clever, with Rachel Talalay directing at the top of her game, and Peter Capaldi letting rip in a solo piece that I'm not sure any other actor could have pulled off. The 12th Doctor, immediately after witnessing his companion Clara die in a trap street in London, is transported away to a giant revolving castle in the middle of nowhere. The whole time he's being stalked and chased by a veil creature, which is there to frighten and torture a confession out of him. He makes his way through the castle, all the while discovering clues that someone else has been there before him, due to all of the skulls in the water, clothes being left behind for him, a cryptic bird message written in the dust upon his arrival, and even the stars aren't in the right place.
I didn't know better. I'd say I've traveled 7,000 years into the future.
The 12th Doctor is trying to evade this veil and work his way through the macabre puzzle box. But remember, for him, he only saw his best friend, his companion that he had a duty of care for, die a few hours ago because he couldn't save her. He laments the loss, using his TARDIS console room as an imaginary mental escape as he plans his route from room to room, before using a half-confession on the veil to open up the final corridor, a featureless black room, save for a single diamond wall. His escape is a single confession away. He's cornered, and then he remembers.
Bart!
This isn't the first time he's been here, and as he decides to not give in to the Veil's demands, he reminisces about the Brothers Grimm and the tale of the shepherd's boy with the bird on the Diamond Mountain. And this doctor, this man with gadgets, gizmos, a brain the size of a planet, decides to outmaneuver the prison masters by punching his way through the diamond wall. The Veil obviously catches up to him, but due to Time Lord biology, the Doctor is able to survive without immediately regenerating, so he crawls his dying body back to the room where he started to burn that body to fuel the transporter that still holds his biological print, allowing him to restart the loop. The skulls in the water are all of the previous 12th Doctors before him, the clothes drying by the fire were his predecessors, and the stars have moved because the Doctor has been repeating this loop, burning his old self as fuel for the next one, for a very, very long time. The Doctor, who remembers every time this happens, but is spurned on by the spirit of Clara, still residing in his mind, is going to chisel away at the Diamond Wall for billions of years.
If you think because she's dead I'm weak, then you understand very little. If you are any part of killing her, and you're not afraid, then you understand nothing at all. So for your own sake, understand this. I'm the Doctor. I'm coming to find you, and I will never ever stop.
And at first, this seems like a fruitless endeavour. The 12th Doctor only becomes aware of the loop when he's already trapped at the wall, so he can't do anything to break it. However, as the montage goes along and repeats and repeats and repeats, with the brilliant editing of veteran Will Oswald working off of Stephen Moffat's detailed and methodically structured script, the audience starts to see that the more loops the Doctor does, the further along in the Brothers Grimm fairy tale he gets, as he's very, very, very slowly, but surely, making his way through the Diamond Wall. What I love about this set piece isn't just how astonishingly cleverly it's written and how brilliantly it's presented, along with Murray Gold's music underscoring it, the track called Shepherd's Boy, and how it's building the entire time with no actual end in sight, almost like a shepherd tone. Oh, you clever boy. But what I love about this is that it's simultaneously the most un-Doctor-like solution applied in the most Doctorly way. The 12th Doctor, rather than admit defeat, is going to punch his way out of this prison. He's going to put himself through hell and back, being constantly reminded of the loss of his friend to try and brute force his way through his grief. With every punch at the wall, with every revelation, with every movement of the stars, he's inching ever closer to his escape in this war of attrition between himself and his grief, being cheered on by the Clara who hasn't really gone away because she's still in his mind. It's such a profoundly poetic loop that almost feels akin to the entire experience of the Doctor in the show itself. How the Doctor fights loss and staves off death only to get back up with a new body to continue the battle. We talked about this before with the Doctor Falls, but we have the 12th Doctor getting blinded and still carrying on, losing Bill to cyberconversion but still finding hope and another way. How the Doctor loses friends like Katarina, Adric, Donna, the Brigadier and more, but there's still evil to outsmart, confessions to tease, and monsters to evade. Heaven Sent is Doctor Who distilled. Yet it still feels unique. What other Doctor would try and punch a wall out of stubbornness for billions of years to keep the secrets of the hybrid? A secret it's later revealed he doesn't even know about, but...
Stay on target.
But sometimes the Doctor will get it wrong. He'll get himself trapped, he'll lose people. But in the end, he'll overthink his way to victory, whether it's the War Doctor finding another way with his future selves, the 9th Doctor refusing to press the button again, the 10th Doctor realising he's stepped out of line, the 11th Doctor holding his ground, the 12th Doctor brute forcing through his pain, or the 13th Doctor discovering she wasn't who she thought she was. This breaking down of the wall in Heaven Sent is not just an incredible metaphor for grief or depression, but also is the Doctor's never-ending journey encapsulated, always being chased by the shadow, always punching that wall to the beaconing light, the victory, the brighter future on the other side.
Personally, I think that's a hell of a bird.
Phew. Oh boy. This was one hell of a journey. Not just the 25 days of December, but also the 16.5 years that the revival has been on the air, from Rose to Flux. With the 13th Doctor set to regenerate next year, and a new showrunner with a new Doctor waiting in the wings, her song may be over, but the story never ends. I'd like to thank you all for joining me in this epic journey, and a look back at the past 16 years of the show. I'd also love to know what moments resonated with you folks the most. Be sure to let me know what you thought of my list, and feel free to respond with your own in the comment section below. With that said, I hope you've enjoyed this series, and have a happy new year. I'll see you all next time. Hey folks, I hope you enjoyed all 3.5 hours of that. I'm assuming you did, because you're now here at the credits after listening to me talk about 16 years of TV ad nauseum. So first things first, if you are here at the end of this video, thank you so much for watching it. I'm assuming you enjoyed it, so hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And also, let me know in the comments section what moments you think I should have put on the list, or what your own personal top 50, or maybe not top 50, what your own top 10 was. So if you want to do a top 50, I'm not going to stop you. And also, while you're there, be sure to let me know if there's any other rankings that you think I should do next year, or if there's any other lists or any other marathons you think I should do. Any suggestions? I want to hear it down below. But I also want to give a massive shout out to my patrons, who, without them, this sort of long form marathon type content would not be remotely possible. So thanks so much to my patrons who get early access to these videos, who get their names in the credits regardless of their patron tier, and I'd like to give a shout out to these particular patrons: Anne Neubauer, Andrew, Dean Jones, Andrew Blewett, Callum Baird, Daniel Davis, Dylan Whitaker, Flarbu, Flipmeister MK, Jeremy K. Duncan, Leela, Mario Fanboy 15, Matthew Perry, Michael Serrano, Nate Harris, Palex, Raven Woods, The Brit Sniper, Toby Loxton, Dan Morrison, Nathaniel Holden, Samuel Brooks, Zarby555, Aaron Carver, Adam Grattan, Darius, Evil Dalek 79, Finley Rude, George is Lost, Ginger Animator, Harvey Smith, Jack D. Evans, Joseph Adams, Joshua McDonough, Ollie Tomlinson, Rebecca Hill, Ricky Temple, Ryan Duncan, Samuel Whitaker, The Raggedy Jedi, Will Be Fat, and Zach Conway. Thanks so much to my patrons, thanks so much to you folks for watching, and if there's any other long-form content that you're interested in watching, then I recommend my Daleksember marathon, every Dalek story from 1963 to 2019. And with that being said, I'll see you folks next time.